Oh, sorry.
All right, we'll call this meeting to order. Ms. Fazzoni, please call roll.
Councilmember Coburn.
Here.
Councilman Register.
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor Jarman.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Casto.
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Tatterman.
Yes, ma'am. Today's invocation will be led by Pastor Raymond Duvall of the Beachside Fellowship Church. Pastor, please stand.
Let's pray together. Father, we're so grateful to you for the privilege that you give us of living in this community. We're grateful, Lord, that you created it for us, and you've brought us here together, Lord, for the advancement of your purpose and your agenda. I pray, Lord God, for these, our leaders, every council member, for the mayor, Lord God, for every city official, and for everyone, Lord, that works and helps us, Lord, to enjoy life here in Panama City Beach. Bless them, guide them, direct them, Lord God. Give them supernatural wisdom and vision for the future. Lord, in God we do trust. We put our trust in you today, that you would guide us and direct us. I thank you also for your blessings on those here in their business community and the residents of Panama City Beach. Lord, we thank you for granting them peace and joy and success. Lord, we look forward to the great things you have in our future. We give you the praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
the announcements. All right, time for the community announcements. On September 2nd, it's Labor Day, so the city offices will be closed. On September 4th, at 11:30 a.m., we invite everyone to join us for the grand opening of the PCB Fire Rescue Training Tower. That will be at the Station 30 at Nautilus. So please join us there, 11:30, Wednesday, September 4th. September 6th through 8th, World Sports League Softball World Series will be at Frank Brown Park. September 12th at 6 p.m. is our next city council meeting right here in City Hall. September 13th through 15th is again World Sports League Softball World Series at Frank Brown. September 20th to 22nd is Project Dance at Aaron Besant Park. September 21st and 22nd is USFA Fast Pitch Tournament at Frank Brown Park. That's sensing a pattern here. September 21st and 22nd will again be World Sports League Softball World Series. I would like to push, City Manager Whitman, would you like to introduce our new Public Information Officer?
Yeah, I'd like to introduce Sherry Cooper. She's coming to us from the state of Arkansas with a lot of history and communications at PIO. I'd like her to come up and introduce herself for herself.
Sherry?
Mayor and Council, thank you for having me and welcoming me. I just want to tell you that I'm so excited to be here. I have over 20 years experience in communications and have already joined your team, working collaboratively with all of your team members, and it has just been the warmest welcome I've ever received anywhere I've ever worked. This is paradise, as you know, and I just am very honored and privileged to be here, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Sherry.
Welcome.
So for the press folks in the room, feel free to reach out to Sherry. I know we've been struggling without a PIO here for a little bit, and so I'm really happy that she's able to step in to fill the gap. I would like to move the approval of agenda to before the approval of the meeting minutes. City Manager Whitman, is there any changes you'd like to make?
Yeah, I'd like to, with your permission, the council's permission, I'd like to push the approval of minutes to the September 12th meeting.
Okay,
Okay.
good?
Sure.
All right. Any changes from the council? Okay. Next up,
Mayor, may we have the motion, please.
Can I get a motion?
Motion approved.
Second.
Ms. Mazzoni, please call roll.
Councilmember Coburn?
Yes.
Councilman Register?
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor Jarman?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Casto?
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Sheldon, or Mayor Teddemer?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is public comment on the consent and/or non-agenda items. You're limited to 3 minutes. Please come up, state your name, and please address me or the council as a whole. Thank you.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Michael Steinkirchner. I do business and work in Panama City Beach. A couple of months ago, I brought a matter before members of the council and city manager in an email regarding marketing or planning of events without a valid permit. Section 417 requires that no person shall or entity shall organize, stage, promote, or conduct any special event without holding a valid special event permit from the city manager. Now, I know there was a lot of work on special events and what constitutes a large event. I reached out to Ms. Fazzone several months ago about an event that was being promoted and tickets were being sold for Labor Day weekend. That event was canceled. It did not have a permit. We are back now. Gulf Coast Jam is selling tickets without a permit. And before we go back to the whole thing of they have a standing agreement, every year Gulf Coast Jam has to get a permit. They're in violation of the city code. Everybody sat on their haunches before. I'm bringing it to the public's attention. So we're making all these owners go jump through all these hoops for permits, but the old mayor doesn't have to get one to sell tickets for his concert. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steinkirchner. Further public comment on consent agenda or non-agenda business?
Thank you. Scott Hellman, 137 Johnson Bayou Drive. A couple of weeks ago, we hosted a Virginia Tech soccer recruitment camp at Frank Brown Park. Despite the rain on Friday and part of Saturday, the fields were in great shape, the ground crew was amazing, and we had a great turnout with over 100 players from as far away as Texas. This was Virginia Tech's first recruitment day here, and it won't be their last. They were very impressed with the fields, by the way. The fields we're set up on, though, were known as the concert fields up front. The soccer fields in the back are better manicured, and next year we are bringing in high-quality players from Division I schools. And when we showcase the Panama City Beach amenities, I think it would be in our best interest to have access to those better fields in the back. And I'd like to know what the process would be to get that in the future. To piggyback off what that gentleman said a moment ago, I think the special event ordinance in general, the whole thing is just a very bad idea. You all had the opportunity to make this less restrictive, but instead made it more restrictive. Instead of expanding the government powers, you attacked individual liberties. I believe liberty is more important than the government restrictions. I also believe the First Amendment means what it says, that the government shall make no law abridging the rights of the people to peaceably assemble. It pains me to know that I live in a city that does not truly respect the First Amendment of the Constitution. Every year, Breakfast, and just so you understand how this can affect people, every year Breakfast Point, where I live, hosts a Halloween party. It's advertised on Facebook. It's being planned as we speak. Last year, there were over 5,000 people there. This is on both public and private property. The language taken directly from the ordinance affects everybody that you all affirmed and you amended. The language is, you cannot have a decentralized pop-up event set up through social media occurring on public or private property without a permit. I understand in the past the city has not enforced these laws within the communities, but who's deciding when and where you enforce the law? What happens when your successors decide to enforce this law? If there was another large event on Halloween, would you cancel Halloween in one of these events? And I'm not trying to be facetious here, but these are the ideas that can happen these things can happen from these laws. What actions do the communities in Panama City Beach need to take to prevent government interference on something like Halloween? Do we petition for Halloween permits? If nothing's needed, can you provide the language in the ordinance that allows for unpermitted, decentralized, organized large events within the city limits? Stating you'll simply choose not to enforce the laws is evidence of the potential abuse of this policy. If you're not going to enforce the law, if you're not going to expect your successors to enforce the laws, then why make the laws in the first place? And I hope that we continue to go down a less restrictive pathway and not a more restrictive pathway. Thank you for your time.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hellman. Further public comment on consent and non-agenda business?
Hello. I'm Shanice Hatcher, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I want to first off say that, you know, common sense, we live in such a beautiful city. We have a brand-new hospital. We have all these new buildings coming out. We have new, like 500 jobs coming in. So I think we need to take a deep breath and say, thank you, Lord, for our beautiful city and what you provided for us. We are all human beings, and laws are laws to be changed accordingly to what needs to be. Use good common sense. Use good common sense when you look at things, not something that your people 100 years ago decided and now we're just going to sit down with these things. So we have evolved as a group of people. So sometimes things need to change in a city. We have an obligation to keep our city beautiful, and I want to commend code enforcement because they have really tried hard and they're stepping up to the game. So I commend them for that. Ask the people to continue to email Lanny when there's a problem, or Drew Whitman, or whomever. Ethan Register is really big on cleaning up this city. We have to be clean. We have to look beautiful for people to be attracted to this city. The tourism tax of 1% is what pays your salaries and the bills of this city, if I'm correct. And if we don't encourage tourism, and we don't encourage an air show and a concert and a little this and a little that, how are we going to pay our bills and keep our city up running the way it needs to be? Tourism is important. That's why this city was built on tourism. It was not built on little communities staying tight. And I want to encourage you, don't waste your good, hard-earned energy, my friends, on worrying about little things. God takes care of those things. I found that. He works those things out. And what you think is so big today and you're fighting so hard for, probably not going to be that big 10 years from now. So look at your community, work together, be kind to each other, and be open to changing things that works for our community. We're not the way we were 20 years ago. We have highways, we have all kinds of things, businesses. We need to, at Christmas time, we need to have lights on our businesses. We need to, that encourages everybody who's coming through. Panama City Beach is alive. We're here, we're open to do business. If you and your children were riding down the road and you see all these Christmas lights, does it not make you feel happy? It does. So we need to put money from tourism into that, cleaning up our city, making our city look beautiful for occasions, and return to a hometown community supporting what we were originally designed for, which was tourism. That's why we're here. If you moved in here and you thought it was going to be something else, you probably need to find a way back out, including myself. Everybody's renting. So, anyway.
Thank you, Ms. Hatcher.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further public comment on consent and non-agenda business?
Hi, my name's Colleen Swab Chapman. I'm the owner of Outlaw Rentals and Classy Cycles. Can I give these packets?
If you put them right there, we'll make sure they get in the paperwork.
Okay. Well, they need to see what I'm talking about. So, Outlaw Rentals and I think 4 other companies were grandfathered in after we lost our scooter rights. So the city got rid of scooters, so they made us all grandfathered in for golf carts. Well, the problem is, you have people renting golf carts with their houses, which is 30A. So these are 30A golf carts that are being rented with any of the housing that's coming in Bidawee. These are in Bidawee. So the problem is that they're renting them with the homes. Well, if we're gonna go that step, I'm gonna start renting, we've got 10 homes that are in the city. So I'll start renting golf carts through that way. I don't wanna do that, and you don't wanna start that. Because I can assure you, these people are not telling them the rules. They've got 15-year-olds that are driving them. They don't know which roads to go on. And I have to have my golf carts inspected. These guys don't. They're using it as an amenity with the house. But you pay more for the house because it comes with a golf cart. So they're not being inspected. They don't know the rules. And this goes against your city ordinance, because if I have to follow these rules, they would too. But they're not licensed in the city to be renting golf carts, and that's what they're doing as an amenity with the house. So you're gonna open a whole new corridor of issues. You just are. You're gonna have 1,000 golf carts before you know it at each home. And if we're not gonna do something about this now, that's fine, but I'm gonna rent my golf carts just like they are with the houses. I don't wanna do that, and you don't want that. So I think we should find a way to nip this in the butt before it becomes an issue, because if somebody dies on this golf cart, it's a rental golf cart. Then you start looking at me like we did something wrong for the industry. We didn't have a part in this. We didn't realize this was gonna be an issue. I thought last year it might. I said something in January, and it fell on deaf ears. Now I'm seeing golf carts that are not, they don't have see, this one has got the company and the tag numbers and all this on here, right? But what they're doing is that a lot of them don't have their names on the side of the golf carts. They're renting them as privately owned vehicles, and you're gonna have the same problem. You're gonna have a safety issue. They don't know that they gotta have them in car seats, and they just don't know what the rules are. So I think we need to take a look at this, and I would appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Chapman.
Thank you.
Further public comment on consent and/or non-agenda business? Okay. Mr. Whitman, would you be willing to respond?
Yes, sir. I'll start off with Michael. He's correct. There are companies that go out there and advertise, but that's a business thing where they're selling tickets. If we deny their permit, that's a business decision to lose that money or refund the money. But I can't control what a business does is early selling of tickets. I only can control what the permit is. So regardless if they have a contract with the city, they still have to get a permit from the city. So if it fails, if they made a business decision to sell tickets, that's on them, not the city. This has happened a couple of times with other people coming in and advertising something at their investment, and they either didn't get a permit and they had to refund, or they got the permit at the last minute. So I hope that answered his question. Scott brought up the fields. I'll talk to Cheryl about that. And he also talked about Halloween. We looked at Halloween as just a community event. We never required them to do a special event on that. It's just something where the kids go around and we know the neighborhoods get together on that. But I can look at with legal to make sure we don't violate anything in the future with different councils. But councils always looked at it as a community event for the kids, same as Christmas and other holidays. But I'll work with legal on that. Ms. Hatcher was basically comments to you, and Colleen from California Cycles. I've worked with her several times. Great person. She keeps me notified when golf carts do come in the city that are being dropped off at Walmart. I have the police department get those out of there. I've reached out to legal. We're looking at bringing something in the future if you guys have the appetite to look at short-term rentals that are dropping these carts off. Because she is correct, in 2015-16, we grandfathered 4 or 5 companies in that were the only ones allowed to rent low-speed vehicles in our city limits. Now with short-term rentals becoming more and more becoming more of a problem in our city limits with short-term rentals with the golf carts, we're looking into that. That's something legal's been doing on the city's behalf. But Colleen usually keeps you informed of all that stuff, so
Okay.
we are looking into it.
Okay, great. Any comments from the council on the?
I'd like to ask council about what she was talking about on the golf carts that going along as an amenity.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that something,
Yeah, I mean,
they're violating our ordinance now doing that?
so it depends. So I've been made aware from police department several times that this has become an issue. And this was something that was a very rare occurrence back when we passed this low-speed vehicle ordinance. It has grown in popularity. The way that we have treated this thus far is that if it's an additional charge on the house rental, we treat that as an illegal rental. If it's included for no fee, we have not treated it as a violation of the ordinance. That is something that I think is a policy decision on your end. If we need to amend the ordinance to capture those included amenities, we can do that. It's just, we did not specifically address it at the time that we wrote the ordinance. So if you want us to go back and capture that, we can. And so that's something that I've been working with the city manager on, working with the police department, and it's appropriate for you guys to comment on.
Sure.
I would like to see us go back and revisit that, because I know on 30A, they're having a big problem with that over there.
Councilman Richardson?
Yeah, I definitely have an appetite for that. I wanted to understand, though, those golf carts, are they coming with the house, or are they being brought into the city? And I saw you mention, like, is it a company from 30A that's bringing those golf carts, dropping them off with those rentals? So these management companies are bringing a golf cart to whichever house it is, or do these golf carts come specifically, like you generally have an owner of a home, like a rental home, and they may have their own personal golf cart and allow people, but this golf carts sound like they're being brought in from a company on 30A, dropped off at the house? Is that what I'm understanding?
From my understanding, it depends on the rental company, on the owner.
Okay.
There's no uniform approach.
Right.
Some of them are actually saying, you can, for an extra set number of days, we'll deliver you an LSV. And those are the ones that I know the police department has cracked down on. I think there are others that it's just part of the house and it's included in the rental. And so we have not captured those.
Yeah.
If I can, so it's, and I think police department probably can clarify this more than I can, but that's my understanding of, that it's not a uniform approach, that different houses are doing it different ways.
I definitely have an appetite to revisit it, for sure.
Actually, Chief Talamantes, can you, I know you weren't prepared for this one, but.
He's got it.
Yeah, he's got it, yeah. Full faith in him.
Sure. Yeah, we've been working on this situation for a couple weeks now. We had just had a meeting with code enforcement, sort of a workshop brainstorming on how we could approach this issue. So to answer your question, Councilman, it is it's a combination of everything. We have not yet identified a specific circumstance where a person rented a house and the vacation renter rented the golf cart from an outside entity and it was brought to the house for the purposes of it being utilized by the person that's visiting. We have reports of that. We have not yet to identify it. We do know of some golf carts. Golf carts and LSVs have different restrictions. We are cracking down on golf carts in the roadways where they're not supposed to be, trying to educate people. But yes, I would agree that, we probably need to look at this with a more focused manner because it's going to be a growing trend.
Do you find there are tools you need to address this that you don't have available?
Sure. Well, in regards to the rentals of these golf carts, we identifying them on the front end is difficult. We don't know about it until somebody calls us. We do a very good job, I think, of identifying low-speed vehicles that have an advertisement for a business that has not been grandfathered in, and we take action in those. We also take appropriate action in golf carts we find in the places that are not supposed to be primary Front Beach Road. North and south is typically the direction those golf carts can go. Education to the Airbnb or vacation rentals is going to be one of our primary objectives. That depends on what you guys want to do, but if golf carts are going to be allowed to be rented, I think there needs to be an educational component on golf cart laws, especially with the new laws that were passed just a couple months ago, on the age of the person being able to drive it, the restrictions, the safety guidelines. So all of those have been in the talks. This is nothing that has gone on deaf ears. We've been looking into it for weeks.
Yes.
These LSVs or golf carts, they still have to be registered, correct?
Well,
And if they're not, then they're easily identifiable?
Well, LSVs do.
LSVs,
Yes. A golf cart does not have to have a state registration.
Gotcha.
Okay. Any further questions from the chief? Councilmember?
Are these companies that are bringing in the golf carts, are they licensed in the city?
Well, that's the thing. We have yet to identify a company that has brought in an LSV that is from outside an entity to an Airbnb specific location or vacation rental location. So we know that there are companies that rent LSVs outside our jurisdiction, and there has been allegations and comments about those situations happening, but we have yet to identify a specific instance and something we can take action on. But I would not be surprised if that's occurring. Everybody's, a lot of times people are trying to skirt the system, but we're trying to stay vigilant out there, and I have a dedicated unit, special operations unit, that handles these specific circumstances directly.
Okay.
Hey, can I just clarify really quickly? The city's ordinance does not regulate rental of golf carts, only
That's
LSVs.
correct.
Okay.
So that may be also part of this equation, is that if they're getting a golf cart as part of the rental, that's completely outside of our ordinance.
Okay. Well, I think we've touched on this enough here. It may be worth having an agenda item next meeting to discuss options for this.
Yeah, then direct staff to start spinning stuff up.
Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely.
Council, if you could get us a few options for how regulation would look, what regulation would look like for golf carts that come with vacation rentals, LSVs that come with vacation rentals, just kind of survey the field and give us a few options.
Certainly.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Oh, Councilmember?
Just like to thank Ms. Hatcher for her compassion and caring for our community. I know there's a lot of people that are in your boat that want to beautify this city and want to continue to hold people accountable that don't want to beautify their locations or take care of it. We've got a lot of people that care and genuinely are compassionate about beautifying the city, including myself. And we have a lot of neighborhoods that are really, really great at it. We have a lot of neighborhoods that aren't really great at it. We have a lot of businesses that are great at it. And we have a lot of businesses that aren't so great at it. So we just need to be consistent, and we need to understand as a community what we're willing to accept as okay. So continue to please work with code enforcement and let people know. And we're the policymakers up here, and if we need a more stringent policy to be able to clean this place up, to move us into the future, then I'm definitely willing to try to take that on and beautify this beach, because people want, like you said, Christmas lights for the holidays. It creates an emotion for not just residents, visitors, all of us. It creates an emotion that we got a beautiful place and we're happy to be here, and we want people to be here. So I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate what you said. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a question about the Christmas lights. We do Christmas lights. We allow Christmas lights.
We do some, but they're just trying to promote I don't know how we would go about doing it, maybe through the TDC or something along those lines to promote businesses or provide. I think we did in the past after the oil spill. We had like a matching program where we used some of that money for businesses that they used a specific light vendor. After the oil spill, we had some money and we matched whatever they did for businesses on Front Beach Road to kind of clean up and light up some stuff. But I think we should light our palm trees. We should do more. We can definitely do more.
Okay.
I know over the past few years, we've had conversations in trying to increase each year our lighting. I know Councilmember Coburn and Councilman Casto know this. We've tried to increase the amount of Christmas lighting that we've done each year. I think, was it last year, we talked about possibly doing some light, trying to get together like what they have at the park in Panama City, where they have all the light decorations.
Yeah.
Oaks by the Bay?
Yeah, Oaks by the Bay, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's definitely been something that has been a consistent conversation for us. So, and I would love to see it continue, so.
Okay. Absolutely.
Mr. Davis, can you speak to the Mr. Hellman's concerns about First Amendment restrictions for the events as well as pop-up events?
Yes, I'm happy to. So our special event ordinance is actually very carefully crafted to make sure that there aren't any special event implications in those regulations. Yeah. So to make sure that they are content neutral, that they are, that it is based purely upon, the municipal resources that are required for that event and the public safety issues that are related to that event. So I can tell you I've been part of revisions to the special event ordinance to make sure that the approval process, that the permitting process is all based on objective criteria and not on subjective criteria based on the content of your event.
Okay. Mr. Whitman, there's a history of pop-up events. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, there is a history of pop-up events. We do have an ordinance on that. If they start advertising on social media, the law enforcement's got a right to stop them or contact the promoter saying they need to get a permit.
Okay. And I would encourage Mr. Hellman to speak to Mr. Davis afterwards if there are concerns. We take the First Amendment very seriously. It's the part of the fundamental law of the land. Mr. Scheinecker, sorry. You mentioned that Section 14.7 may prohibit advertising before the permit's applied. We'll certainly look into that and get an understanding of that as well. And we already discussed at length the rentals. Okay. Anything else from the council on public comment? Okay. Next up is the consent agenda. Ms. Fazzoni, would you please read the consent agenda?
Resolution 24-168, a resolution of the City of Panama City Beach, Florida, approving amendments to the city's procurement manual. Resolution 24-169, a resolution of the City of Panama City Beach, Florida, approving the purchase of one club car carryall 1700 for the Fire Rescue Department from Jeffrey Allen, Inc., in the total amount of $27,617.40, and agreeing to be bound by the terms and conditions of the State of Florida Department of Management Services contract governing that purchase. Resolution 24-170, a resolution of the City of Panama City Beach, Florida, approving the purchase of one 2024 Chevrolet Silverado 1500 Crew Cab 4x4 from Allen J. Automotive Management, Inc., doing business as Allen J. Fleet Sales, for the Parks and Recreation Department, in the total amount of $50,121, and agreeing to be bound by the terms and conditions of the City of Tallahassee contract governing that purchase.
Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Ms. Vizzoni, please call roll.
Councilmember Coburn?
Yes.
Councilman Register?
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor Jarman?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Casto?
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Teddemer?
Yes, ma'am. Next, we're on the regular agenda. First up is ordinance 1650. Mr. Davis, can you please read the title?
Yes, sir. An ordinance of the City of Panama City Beach, Florida, amending Section 712 of the city's Code of Ordinances related to failure to observe the beach safety flag warning system, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, Scrivener's errors, liberal interpretation, modifications, codification, and providing for an effective date.
And if you could briefly remind us what this ordinance is about?
Yes, sir. So this is changing the way that we enforce and address violations of when people enter the waters of the Gulf of Mexico during double red flags. Rather than going based on failure to obey an order, which is still part of the ordinance, we also allowed for a violation if someone knowingly knows that the water is closed and the double red flags are flying and the water is dangerous, still goes into the water despite all of that knowledge. And so this is consistent with how code enforcement has approached this issue and what is most common, what they see with boots on the ground. So this is at their request to kind of make it consistent with practice.
Okay. Is there any, thank you, Mr. Davis. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Okay. Any discussion from the council?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Ms. Vizzoni, please call roll.
Councilmember Coburn?
Yes.
Councilman Register?
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor Jarman?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Casto?
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Teddemer?
Yes, ma'am. Next up is ordinance 1651. Mr. Davis, could you read the title?
An ordinance of the City of Panama City Beach, Florida, amending Section 7.3 of the city's charter related to the conduct of municipal elections, amending Section 216 of the city's code related to the dates of the city's November council meetings during election years, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, Scrivener's errors, liberal interpretation, modifications, codification, effect on existing terms, and providing for an effective date.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Mr. Davis, if you could explain a little bit more, because we changed that.
Yes, certainly. So based on your first reading at the last meeting to change the election from April to November, the council directed us to address the issue of having a lame duck session in November based on the dates of the election, the dates of the certification of the election, and the dates of your November meeting. So we've changed your ordinance related to your meeting dates to where during an election year, you would only have one meeting in November, and that meeting would be held on either the third or the fifth Thursday, depending on when Thanksgiving falls, essentially. You would have it would be the first Thursday after the certification of the election, unless that date is Thanksgiving, and in that case, it would be on the second Thursday. So practically speaking,
Let's be on the fifth Thursday.
Well, the second Thursday after the certification.
yeah.
So that's the way the language reads, but practically speaking, it's the third or the fifth Thursday of the month, depending on how it falls. To put that in context, in 2026, if you had a November election, you would seat the new council the third Thursday. In 2028, you would seat the new council on the fifth Thursday.
Okay.
Okay. And this removes the lame duck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Gotcha.
We already called for public comment. Did you find any ordinances in conflict with this? It says repealing all ordinances in conflict.
No, sir.
Okay.
Well, let me clarify that. Your prior election date changes have been made by ordinance, and so this would repeal those prior ordinances. I think there's two different ordinances where the council changed the election dates by ordinance, so this would repeal those two ordinances.
Okay. All right, well, I personally went back and forth on this one, and this council well, most of it was at the League of Cities last week. And I actually got a pretty good opportunity to survey folks from around the state about when their election was and what they felt about it. And it was interesting because it was a pretty mixed bag. So we had some folks with November elections that thought it was great because it brought people into the process. Some folks with November elections that said, okay, yeah, I mean, there's it's hard to be heard in the midst of November, so you had both sides to that. But you also had both sides to the earlier date, too. Folks that enjoyed it because it was clear, but other folks that were concerned at the lower turnout at the older date. I will say I ran the numbers. One of the special parts about my history in Panama City Beach was when I first went to vote for the municipal elections and actually got to meet the candidates. I met Councilmember Coburn, Councilman Casto. And I thought it was really special to go out there, vote election day at Frank Brown, and actually get to meet the candidates. So one of my concerns was with the expanded voting that fewer people are going to meet the candidates because we'll have 5 voting sites open. But I ran the numbers, and a lower percentage absolutely would get to meet the candidates because you're not going to be able to stack. You're not 5 people. But even with the lower percentage, if you kept the exact same schedule, so the week before and then election day, just say we picked at Lindell, even though you'd cover 30% of all the voters, you would still meet substantially more people because of the increased turnout. So, the increased turnout is part of our being able to meet the candidates was part of what got me into politics. So I'm really happy with that outcome. Personally, my only reservation, and this is specific to me, is, I just got in here 4 months ago, and this would extend my term 6 months. And so that would be my hesitation for voting for it. But if there's any other discussion from the council?
Well, I mean, I've made my position fairly clear. It's, it is going to definitely, if you look back at past elections in November, and look at Destin and other turnouts in the 166, I think, cities in the state of Florida that have this in November, the turnout is going to be increased. And I think that's important for any election, is to have as many voices speak as possible. And that's what this is about for me. So I would say also in your comment in meeting candidates, it also provides, if you look at it a little bit from qualifying to election, a lot more time for a candidate to get out and, like Councilman Register said, to knock on doors and meet people face to face. So everyone knows where I stand on this.
Okay.
I also like the idea of moving this to November because of the higher turnout. I think when the Councilwoman Coburn and myself ran, it was only like 17% turnout versus in November you have 75% turnout. To me, it's a no-brainer. We save $20,000 a year because we don't have to pay for that extra election. So I'm for moving it to November.
Okay.
Yes. I talked to a lot of people while we were at conference as well, and I got mixed reviews on both dates. I do believe, or actually, I don't like the idea of totally giving up control of our election to the county and losing our place on the canvassing board. I think that's important for us as well. I also think we need to make it easier for our residents to vote, not make it more confusing with long ballots that's going to have multiple races, referendums, initiatives, and amendments. And then down at the very bottom, there'll be the city's election. And I think there's going to be a lot of voter fatigue. And I'm opposed to this. I haven't changed my opinion.
Okay.
And I'm especially opposed to changing the date of the meeting in November. I think you should seat the new council the first meeting in December.
Okay. Councilman Register, do you have any comment?
Yeah, I mean, I made my stance clear. I also went to the League of Cities and spent a lot of time talking to folks, especially neighboring people in Northwest Florida, and their feedback was generally on the side of moving it in November. We can save some money, save taxpayer dollars. I remember during early voting, traffic was incredibly difficult to get around this beach during April. I think November is just a better time to get up and down the beach. Allows people to have more access. Spring break's a very busy time for the city of Panama City Beach, so I think you'll also get voter turnout just for the people not having to get out and fight traffic. A lot of people won't do that, so I think that's a big deal. But I do want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for catching the lame duck meeting. I'm totally behind you on that. I think it's a great idea. I don't think we should ever have a lame duck meeting. I think that's a bad move. It sets a bad precedent, and I appreciate you catching that. And so I'm in support. I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. I just want to make sure there's no further discussion. Nope. Okay. Ms. Fazzoni, please call roll.
Councilmember Coburn?
No.
Councilman Register?
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor Jarman?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Casto?
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Teddemer?
Nope. Okay. Next up is Resolution 24171. Mr. Davis?
A resolution of the City of Panama City Beach, Florida, modifying the rules of procedure to provide for the orderly conduct of city meetings, repealing all policies or resolutions in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date. Mr. Mayor, you may recall about a month ago, I asked to bring you back some revised council procedures based on the new councils, the way that you are working together. And so this largely reflects some housekeeping on the staff's end, and then my observations of how things have been running over the past few months. I do have the draft pulled up in case you want to make any amendments or tweaks to this while we go, because this is largely kind of my attempt to try to capture what you're up to.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Davis. Is there any public comment on this item? Okay. Honestly, the way I'd kind of like to run through this is everyone has it pulled up. You want to just go through each of the changes, and if it's confusing, ask Mr. Davis to talk through it, and then see if we like that change. Okay. On page 1 of 6, accordingly, the city hereby designates meetings of the city council and all public meetings of its boards as limited public forum reserved for the conduct of city business. These rules of procedure and any associated procedural actions by the presiding officer shall be reasonable and viewpoint neutral. Mr. Davis, could you help us understand that?
Yes, so that's probably a little bit of housekeeping on my end to indicate to the public that this is not a traditional public forum for First Amendment purposes. It is not what we would call a free-for-all. The meetings of this council are for the purpose of conducting business, which has a legal effect on how you conduct yourselves and how you conduct members of the public.
Okay. I'm fine with that section.
Yeah, good.
Good. Okay. Next up is on page 3 of the document. In the event of talking about comments in the event of continued disruptive behavior, a person may be suspended from attending a city council meetings for a period of time by majority vote of members present. Nothing in this policy shall prevent the city from pursuing any remedy available at the law for intimidating, threatening, or violent behavior. I think that's fairly self-explanatory. Any concerns? Nope. Next up is physical props, visual or demonstrative aids, easels, noisemakers, and other disruptive devices are prohibited unless authorized by a vote of the city council. I will say I think it's kind of the chairman's job to just to allow or disallow that. I think asking for a vote for bringing in a visual aid seems a little heavy-handed. I was wondering what the council thought about that.
I agree with you. I think that should be the chair's decision.
I can agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. That's fine.
Okay, so change that to the chair. And I just want to clarify that does not include pieces of paper.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So Ms. Chapman's handout would be still doesn't need approval. Okay. At the bottom of that page, public comment shall be invited the city council as each item is considered. The city council shall set aside a period at the beginning or end of the meeting to invite public input on matters of city concern that were not included in that meeting's agenda, a non-agenda comment period. Continue on the next page. Following the conclusion of any non-agenda comment period, the chairperson shall provide the city manager, his or her delegee, and each of the members of the city council the opportunity to respond. And the city manager may, at his or her discretion, elect to provide a written response, which will be included in the minutes. You good with that one? Okay. Sure. Next up is under the cell phone cameras, audiovisual recording equipment larger than cell phone and any associated equipment shall be restricted to an area of the city council chambers designated by the city manager for such devices. That would be in the back right now. I will say personally, right before this, it says, they should be used in a manner of minimal interference as determined by the presiding officer. I think that language is strong enough to avoid disruptions. So I'd like to strike that. Because we frequently have press, we'll kind of scoot along the side to take pictures, and I haven't really seen any continued disruptions of that nature. And we can always update it if it seems to be an issue, but I think the presiding officer has enough power already on that one.
No, I mean, we have a designated place for press, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if someone's acting in the function of the press, which would be probably using something larger than a cell phone, they should be in the press area. That's the intention, right?
Yeah, I have seen folks kind of come up the sides to take pictures with minimal of interference, to take, more shots than just the straight-on shot, and seems to be okay to me. And other thoughts on this one?
I think we're splitting hairs on it.
Yeah, I'm happy to go with you to strike it. I mean,
Yeah, I'd strike it.
I don't want to get bogged down on that.
Yep.
I think, let me ask this one question. Is the purpose of this is if people are like in the general audience area with big cameras and trying to take pictures, is that would apply as well by adding this? Okay, so now I see why we have it.
Yeah.
It's not about walking up the sides, but it's just in the general public domain with something that is larger than a cell phone and acting as press that might interfere with someone else that's in the audience.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
So do we try to fine tune it a little better, or to allow press up the sides to get a different angle?
I think if that's what you're talking about, let's do something where it will allow press, to come up to take momentary pictures, but not allow, press grade cameras that might interfere in the general seating area, so people aren't distracted by that. Or maybe we just change it to the general seating area. The audiovisual recording device is larger than a cell phone and any associated equipment.
Shall not be allowed.
I mean,
I guess my point is, the previous sentence says, shall only be used in such a manner such that there's minimum interference or disturbance of the proceedings as determined by the presiding officer. So that seems to cover all the stuff we're talking about here. And so it's the presiding officer can just say, listen, that giant movie camera you brought in is disruptive. Please move to the press thing. We already have that ability, so splitting hairs here, I think just isn't worth it.
Okay.
Okay, so strike that. Everyone good?
Good.
All right, next one is voting written ballots. I'll try to go quickly on these guys. There'll be written ballots at the discretion of the chair. The result will be announced by the city clerk. And then if there's successive rounds for nominations, anytime someone gets no votes, they'll be removed. Seems fine. Codifies pretty much the way we work.
Yep.
Appointments, if there's vacancies, they'll be advertised for at least 2 weeks. And then city members will just inform the clerk in writing willingness to continue to serve. so everyone knows who all the candidates are. And writing also includes email, is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All
So they don't have to fill out a form or anything, they just have to email the city clerk.
Correct.
I'm still interested in serving.
Great. One thing I'd like is, for all vacancies, I would like to add, at the discretion of the council, for the first sentence.
So that the advertisement would be.
At the discretion of the council.
Okay.
Leave the second as is.
Vice Mayor, could you speak to that a little bit more?
Sure. I think that when it comes to vacancies of any position appointed, that the council should have the ability to say, okay, are we taking applications, or are the council members submitting names, things of that nature?
Yeah.
And it's just, it gives an either or.
Yeah.
I'm all for the second part.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. These are council-level appointments.
Okay.
And so is saying, hey, this is how we want to do it.
yeah.
I think that's reasonable.
Sure. Okay. Absolutely. So we'll add that.
Yep, at the discretion of the council.
So if somebody that's on an existing board and they want to, their term is up and they have to serve again, we have to advertise for that?
No, they would just have to say, hey, I want to serve again, within the,
That would-
if we advertise it. And Mr. Davis, help me understand this interpretation. My understanding is, if we, based on the change proposed by the vice mayor, if we advertise it, then the person who is serving within the advertisement period would just have to send an email.
Yeah. So if somebody's sitting on an existing board, we still have to advertise that when their term's up, or we
No,
don't?
it would be at the council's discretion. They would have to let us know that they are wanting to serve again.
Right.
So
So then we determine if we want to advertise or not.
that is correct.
And I'm going to need to make a little surgery on the second sentence, if that's how you want to do it, to say that prior to the expiration of any appointed term.
Thank you.
You will reach out to the sitting member. So that way, if you choose to just renew that person's term without advertising, right, I need to do a little surgery on that. So I would change the second sentence from prior to the deadline for applications to prior to the expiration of the term.
That makes sense.
Because if you choose not to take applications, for instance, you could,
Yeah.
right, there's a loophole there.
That makes sense.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
And, maybe just like within a couple weeks or a month prior to the end of the term.
I think that needs to be specified as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Everyone just says, I want to serve again right now.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, within a window.
Yeah, some sort of window. I think a month is fine, or 2 weeks, or, we have 2 weeks already in there, so within 2 weeks.
Perfect, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great, thank you.
Or, no, let's actually do a month, because we may discuss it as on the agenda.
And that'll give us time to put it on there.
Yeah,
Okay, so let me clarify, 1 month prior to the expiration of any appointed term.
Yeah,
yeah, I think that's fine.
I'm actually going to say 30 days. So-
okay.
Okay.
This will come back to us
Yeah.
and won't affect appointments.
this-
'Cause I think planning board, I think we have some seats coming up in September possibly.
We do, in October.
If you
October.
approve this as amended, it would go in effect today.
Okay, but does that, I
This
just
doesn't
want to
come
make
back
sure
to-
we're allowing enough windows for those individuals that are on the planning board, if we do have some
Well, that's
that
a good point.
are, I want to make sure they know that they need to write in, and we're not increasing a window that they don't fall inside of possibly. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So,
I'm not entirely sure what the
Maybe.
date of the planning board appointments are.
Planning board appointments expire on September 30th. We already had two members that want to be reappointed. I have a third one that's open that I was going to seek at the end of this, my city manager's report, to see if you want me to advertise it or how you want me to handle the third appointment.
okay. I just want to make sure, with this taking effect today, I don't want it to affect any of those, but
Well,
it sounds like you've already heard, so.
They would have their 30 days.
And there's more than 30 days before the expiration of that term.
But I'd like us to reach out to those expiring seats so that way
Yeah.
they know.
Yeah, I think that's.
Give them a heads up.
Be fair to them,
Yeah, well, absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Thank you.
Okay,
all right.
that's it. Was there any additions folks wanted? No?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Let's do it.
Ms. Mazzoni, please call roll.
Councilmember Coburn?
Yes.
Councilman Register?
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor Jarman?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Casto?
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Tettemer?
Yes, ma'am. This is, for members of the audience, this is the excitement of city government.
Great sausage, man.
All right, next up, further excitement, Resolution 24172. Mr. Davis.
A resolution of the City of Panama City Beach, Florida, approving the purchase of a Toro Field Pro 6040 with laser grader package from Jerry Pate Turf and Irrigation, Inc. for the Park and Recreation Department in the total amount of $52,691.63, agreeing to be bound by the terms and conditions of the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Agreement governing that purchase and authorizing a budget amendment.
Okay. Ms. Joyner, would you please tell us about this great grader?
It's just a smaller unit that we will be able to have on the fields a lot more frequently. Paul knows Corky would come out every so often in a massive piece of equipment and do, a big grade on the fields, which just even that big unit crossing the turf can do some damage. So this is something our crew will be able to maintain the fields grading-wise on a much regular basis and smaller scale.
Okay, so this is for grading the baseball fields?
Yes, the clay.
Okay.
Real reason is Corky retired, right?
I brought him out for a little bit, but yes.
He
And the
was an
CDB is
expert on that.
helping fund this, so.
Yeah, so
Yes.
you don't find too many people can grade like he did.
I know.
So, but anyhow, this is very much needed, I think, so.
Yeah, I agree. I think, the safety of these athletes that we entice to come and spend money in our communities and bring their families here, and then our local kids that play as well, need safely graded fields. So I think it provides great safety. It's good.
Okay.
I'd like to thank the TDC also for funding this.
That's right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Any further questions for Ms. Joyner? No. Any public
Thanks,
comment?
Cheryl.
What's that? Thank you, Cheryl. Any public comment on this item? No public comment? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Ms. Mazzoni, please call roll.
Councilmember Coburn?
Yes.
Councilman Register?
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor Jarman?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Casto?
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Tettemer?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Next up, Resolution 24173. Mr. Davis?
A resolution of the City of Panama City Beach, Florida, amending vacation rental certificate and inspection fees and providing an immediately effective date.
Okay. Chief Morgan, could you please come up and explain this item?
Mayor, Council, Cole can probably fill in some of these guys, but some direction to reduce some of the fees and separate the inspection fees from the registration fees, I believe is the intent here. And we're going to move from $250 to $150, I believe, on the registration fee.
Okay, so right now it's $250 a year.
Right.
And so we're splitting that into a $150 a year renewal, and then if there's a reinspection, $75.
Correct.
And so overall, if you're reinspected, it will be $25 cheaper than it would be currently, but if you're not reinspected, it'd be $100 cheaper.
Right.
Okay? What is the impact on people who've already paid the fee for this year?
That's going to need to be determined. So obviously, this won't kick in until October, so there is some time there, so, to get this in place.
Okay?
All right.
Yeah.
So this is one thing I was looking at and wanted to kind of address, because there is a difference between a renewal and a new certification. I personally want to see this go into effect after October 1. I know that some people have already paid the existing rate. If need be, I think we can do that as a case-by-case basis if they come in. and present a receipt and say, hey, we can address it there. I'm more than welcome to listen to staff on how they think that would best be resolved. But we have to treat this just like we do the building department, and I wanted to make sure that while we need to cover costs and be able to do what we need to do and have correct software, that we weren't trying to overcharge for a service.
Absolutely. Just a little bit of a point of order before I get a motion for this at all. I have yet to open this up for public comment, so before I get a motion, give me, we've launched a discussion, I think that's fine, but I will have to call for public comment before I get a motion.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Further discussion from the council? I will call for, it'll be obvious when I call for public comment.
I do have one thing, looking at this and trying to figure out, we do have some residents that have vacation rentals. Actually, they live here and then they also own some rental properties. Is there a way to possibly save them the burden of, if you live in our community, this inspection, not the process of it, but maybe save them some money on having to do this if they're investing in our community and they also live here?
Which part would you like to save them from?
The monetary part. So is there, I mean, I don't know if there's any, I don't know that there's a ton of people, but I know a few that have rental properties here and they have a couple condos and they invest and they also live here. And if we can save some residents some money that live here and also invest here, I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea to try to do that with these fees. I don't know if there's any appetite for that or not.
Would there be an equity issue?
That would be a policy decision for you to make. There would be some, we would have to look at the nature of our fees and make sure that the city is essentially bearing the burden that the discount would be covered by the city, essentially.
Okay.
You can do that. You can make that policy decision. We can deal with the equity issue. I would probably defer to Holly on financial consequences of that and how we need to account for those.
Sure.
But
and I don't know that there's a ton, but I've talked to some, and I have some people that are like, hey, this is a little bit of a burden here. I live here and I also invest in this community. I invest a lot of money in this community. And if I can save them some of that burden, this is an opportunity to do that. This was just my thought process, and I don't know if anybody else has that.
So Councilman, just help me understand the suggestion. The idea is for some way we determine residents, maybe homesteaded, if they're homesteaded in the municipality, they would either get a discount on probably the renewal fee.
Correct.
Would that be for one or all of their properties?
I'd like to do it for all their properties.
Okay.
And if you guys don't have an appetite for it, it's fine. I'm just trying to think of ways we could use it, and I don't think it's an overwhelming portion. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. You can continue.
That's it. No,
okay.
Please.
So on the renewal fee, all you do is fill out an application and mail in a check, right? So if we're doing cost recovery, there's not a lot of cost associated with them just filling out a file. I mean, it has to be put in the bank and it has to be logged in the computer. So I would say that we could reduce the renewal fee to $75. And then the years where they have to have a reinspection, then it goes to $150. Or it'd be 75 plus the 75.
Vice Mayor, do you mind if I call Chief Morgan up to address that? Sir? Please, no discussion. In fact, I was going to call Chief Morgan up to talk.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so can you help us understand the cost recovery mechanism for the $150 renewal fee? How is that calculated?
So obviously, we're going to have to go back and look, especially if you're talking about possible refunds or whatever. So anytime that a rental unit changes hands, that's a new BTR number, which triggers a new inspection fee. So there's quite a bit of administrative lift on this side of it. So some of the stuff
I'm sorry, just to clarify, I think we were only discussing the renewal fee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So what, can you help us understand how we got to $150 for the renewal fee?
That was in some meetings that we had. That was a suggestion, the 150. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I think in the meetings that I had, we got to the 150 is right now, we're only a year into the program. We're hiring staff to do this program. We are needing software to do this program. We are needing offices to do this program. If we looked at immediately going to $75, we might be hamstringing ourselves in being able to get this program where it needs to go. I personally saw that we could reduce it, but I don't want to, it's going to be, we're just 1 year in. We might come back next year and say, okay, here's where we are this year, we can reduce it again. I do not want to hamstring the department right now and put them in a losing situation and not have the resources and tools that they need to be able to make this as efficient as possible.
Yeah, I will say, I mean, certainly we had a number of complaints about inspections taking a while to be scheduled. And so if this is going to support a staffing requirement for that, I think that makes sense to me. Further questions on this, the 150?
I say leave it at 150 and take a look at it again next year.
Okay.
That's my thought on it.
Okay. All right, so suggestion is to leave it at 150.
One more question.
Yes,
Mayor.
Councilmember.
Was these numbers factored into the budget that we're currently in the process of looking at, the increases in these fees?
We can get you a chair up there if you want.
Yeah. We have looked at the potential numbers that we are inspecting and what these fees look like. Yes, ma'am. And with the need moving forward and also being cognizant of our business community, so.
So was it factored into your budget then?
Yes.
That we were going to
We're
have
prepared
this
to have it.
increase in income to offset the expense?
Yes, we're ready to handle it, yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, one more question. Do these renew annually, or
Yes, they
do
do.
they renew at different times of the year?
Annually.
Every October 1st, they're required to renew them.
And we already have people that have already paid for the upcoming year?
Yes, ma'am, about
Yes.
1,000 people.
Yep, they start early.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. You know, I would be amenable to, if someone's already paid the fee, the 250, and we pass this at 150, and they come up to refund them the $100. I mean, we shouldn't be penalizing people for paying early.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
All right.
Or credit it to the new year?
Oh, Ms. White, how feasible is that? I can see you shaking your head from
So it does create some logistical problems for us, but a refund's much is simpler in the long run than crediting it. Because we don't, to Councilman Jarman's point, one of the things staff is looking at is getting better software, better tools for the inspection department to use. Right now, we don't have particularly good tools on the software side, so the crediting becomes problematic because we don't have a great way to track that systemically. We could much more easily do a refund.
Okay.
I'd request if they do want a refund, if they come up with a receipt, it would make it easier on the staff instead of them trying to backtrack who paid and didn't pay.
Well, I'm definitely leave the refund process in the hands of staff.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to dictate the refund process from here. However, that sounds like an executive decision to me if there ever was
Yes.
one.
Unless we have to. That's a question. Okay.
I think and then to Councilman Register's suggestion, I don't know if for every vacation rental getting rid of the fee, but I would be amenable to one,
Okay.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, you reminded me. So, if we give a discount for a resident on this fee, do we have to treat it just like an assessment where that money is going to have to come out of general fund?
Well, it's already a general fund item, so it won't be particularly tricky to deal with, but we would track it probably. so that we know what that impact, the fiscal impact of that
But
discount is.
would we have to make up the fiscal impact?
Well, you're in the same fund, so you're just going to move it from your right hand to your other right hand, basically. You take it out.
Our left hand's empty now, so then it's going, you know what I'm saying?
You're in the same, you're a little bit different. So from what you're talking about, like with a stormwater assessment, when you
Right.
get that discount, we take it from the general fund, move it over to the stormwater fund.
Right.
In this case, we're in the general fund anyway.
Gotcha.
So the impact is what it is, and to general fund reserves.
So there would be a financial impact that would hit the general fund by doing this.
I mean, certainly if the fee is built to recover our costs, I mean,
Right.
This is going to affect our ability to hire. It really depends on how many people participate in this, and there is, Drew or Holly, if you could speak to the administrative overhead for doing something like this, how difficult would that be?
Again, I think it'll be easier when we have the proper tools. Right now, it'll be harder. They're trying to maintain this huge database of people with Excel spreadsheets, and they do a good job, but they need software that's dedicated to this task, and that will help them do all the things that you guys are talking about in an efficient, effective manner.
So what I'm hearing is that we're kind of in the infancy stages of this. We need more information, we need more analysis, but I would like to revisit it next year if there's a way to save locals that reinvest in our community and rent and have rentals. I think it's important. And I mean, they're investing in our community and they live in our community. So if I can save them a few bucks, I'd like to have the opportunity to be able to do that.
Yeah, personally, I would say I'm absolutely amenable to that as well, but having had to deal with Excel spreadsheets for things they weren't necessarily meant for in a new program, let's try to make this as operationally easy as possible right now.
Absolutely.
And then I'm happy to revisit it once we get the new software. Do you have a RFQ or RFP lined up for that yet?
We're working with IT right now to try to identify some prospective things that might help in the short term, and then it'll be ultimately be part of our ERP package, hopefully.
Okay. So far, I hear refund, should these pass without changes, refund for folks who have already paid the fee for this year? No other changes? Okay.
Yeah, they would have to bring in a receipt. Yes. and all
Yeah,
that.
however, our executive wants to administer that. So he's indicated a receipt would be helpful.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Before we do a motion, let's open for public comment. I know there is at least one public comment. Just remember to state your name, please.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Michael Stein-Kirchner. First off, thank you, Councilman Jarman and Mr. Davis. I know there's been considerable, as well as with fire department, in trying to bring this. You know, this is going to basically save the owners, the reduction for the reinspection is going to save the owners globally in Panama City Beach about $1 million. So that's $1 million concession that I know the city's giving up with this. So on behalf of those owners, it's appreciated. One of the items that's not included in the fee structure, there is language that the fire department has put forward that says the change in a property management company creates this as an entirely new application and would subject the owner to the full $250 fee. I think that's a bit closer towards a reinspection than it would be, even though some numbers and things like that are going to change. Basically, it's sort of against what the public intent of this ordinance is if I have a bad management company and I want to get a better management company that's going to really take care of my property, now I have to pay another full fee instead of just paying a reduced fee to get that better management company. So do I say, well, you know, it's 4 months out, do I just kind of wait and, you know, not do it and just wait on my renewal? So, you know, if there could be a reduction in the fee schedule for a change in property management company, instead of it being a full fee, I think that, you know, would obviously meet the public interest to do that. It also does state that in the actual reading of 1632, in F3C, a property owner may change his or her designated responsible party, and basically by filling out a form. It doesn't mention anything about it creating an entirely new application or new fee. And if we equate responsible party to property manager, because the word property manager never appears in the ordinance. So, is the fee either waived for the change of a property management company? If it's, I've already paid my fee for this year, now I have to pay a full fee again if I want somebody better to manage my property. So I would just ask that that be amended to the fee schedule, either a waiver for a change of property management company, or it be considered a renewal instead of the full $250. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further public comment?
Can I speak? Does it have to pertain to this?
It is the public comment period, so yes.
Thank you so much. Janice Hatcher. I was just asking, I want to ask you this, Mayor and Drew Whitman also. Does the city have an application form for spot short-term rentals? If so,
That's unrelated to this agenda item.
that's the reason I asked, can I speak on anything?
Oh, I didn't hear that on anything. No, you can't speak on anything. That was in the public comment period earlier. And you talked about,
So I'll need to do that next week.
or you can always talk to, you don't have to talk to, and this is in general for the public, you don't only have to talk to us during this meeting. We are available, and we answer emails, we answer our phone calls. So if you want to talk at the next public meeting, certainly you would have to wait because that is a non-agenda item. But if
So
you,
the amount
if
of
you,
time that we spent sitting here talking about this right now, you could have already answered my question.
well, I'm sorry, ma'am, but
I'm
I appreciate you, but we have to follow rules, and the rules have to be the same for everyone.
Yes. I
Right,
understand
and that is a essential fairness that we try to abide by. So if you want to talk about spot zoning, you can either talk to us later on individually, or you can come up next council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
But don't come next week, Janice, we won't be here. 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
I think I just said it. Maybe somebody could hear what I just said. I would like for you to know if
Jen-
the city has
sorry.
that application.
Yeah, sorry, ma'am.
Thank you
Go
so
ahead.
much.
Thank you.
Scott Howland, 137 Johnson Bayou Drive. It seems the purpose of government sometimes is to just fix the problems created by government, and I really think this is showing that. It seems like a much easier, maybe there's a reason for it, but it just seems like if you're going to have the inspection, just have the inspection and the permitting period last the whole time. Why do people need to be taxed again just to reapply? If it sounds, maybe I'm misunderstanding what's going on, but just do it once, and every time you need to have the inspection, just have this whole rollout period could just be all encompassing. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah. Further public comment on this item? Okay.
Before you vote, can I ask one thing?
Yep.
So as drafted, I think the staff's intention was this to go into effect October 1. As drafted, it's immediately effective. I wanted your direction on when you wanted these new fees to take effect.
No,
Well, I think if we did, okay, if we're going to refund,
yeah.
Right,
then we might as well make it effective immediately.
Yeah. Can staff handle immediately? Okay.
It'd be easier to do it at the meeting instead of waiting October and then refunding everybody
Yeah.
who's going to follow the next month and a half.
Sure. Okay.
So,
yeah, immediate. Immediate's fine.
I'm good.
Okay. Further discussion based on the public comment?
Yeah, so the change of property management company, could we change that language to the ownership of the rental property changes to trigger a reinspection as opposed to just a property management company?
Well, those are two different things. So
Yeah, exactly.
a change in ownership, automatically, you have to re-register because your registration is no good once you do that.
Okay.
From Mr. Steinkirchner, I understand that a change in, because you have to have a responsible party, which is often a property management company, on your registration as well.
Right.
My understanding is that staff is treating that as a new registration. Mr. Steinkirchner is asking you to either waive any fee for a change in responsible party or have a different fee for a change in responsible party. That's a policy decision for you to consider. Neither of those things are contemplated in the fee table that you are considering right now.
Okay.
We can add them
Yeah.
if you would like, but that's a discussion you need to have.
Yeah, I mean, I think it may be worth pushing, letting staff, I would want to know what the impact for staff would be. Let's not make it on the fly on that one. I would be amenable to adding that to the next
Again.
agenda.
And that's where I was getting. I think, you know, in the future, I think, again, we roll with it this year. We with the way it's intended, because it's in its infancy stages, but it definitely needs to be revisited, and he brings up a very valid point.
Yeah, I mean, it's related to the fee schedule. And so it was an appropriate comment. Yeah.
I can offer some guidance.
Yeah, sir, the public comments, sir, it's yep. Let's just, I suggest we just push this, and so that we can have this discussion robustly. And
Yeah, we can have staff kind of.
next meeting, yeah.
Get some ideas together, we can have discussion and act on it as a separate entity.
And certainly, Mr. Steinkircher, I would suggest that you work with staff to help shape those options for us next meeting. Okay? All right, so we'll add one to the agenda.
I got it there.
All right, thank you, sir. So, a lot of talking? We're back
Motion to
we're
approve?
back to the unamended.
Yeah.
Oh, except with the refund, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay?
All right, motion to approve with an
Second.
immediate effective date.
Yes.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Pizzoni, please call roll.
Councilmember Coburn?
Yes.
Councilman Register?
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor Jarman?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Casto?
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Teddemer?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Are we doing up here? Do you guys want a break, or we want to hit this last one?
Hit the last one.
Yeah, let's keep going.
Let's hit it. Let's finish this one, take this one home. Okay. Next up is a discussion item for Front Beach Road. Mr. Passmore.
Good morning, Council. Scott Passmore with the Cordino Group, your program manager for the Front Beach Road CRA. And today we have a presentation for you at the request of the city manager to take a look at the future segment 4.3 with some alternative uses of the current auxiliary lane and also some LSV parking options within that corridor. So our purpose today is to present you with an alternative for the use of the currently proposed transit bicycle combo auxiliary lane in segment 4.3. Also prevent a parking option for low-speed vehicles at or near existing beach accesses on the west end of that project within segment 4.3. We're requesting some direction from council regarding the implementation of these auxiliary lane use changes. Also requesting direction for incorporation of LSV parking at the beach accesses. What you see before you on the slide is the current auxiliary lane use concept that is currently approved within our project development study and the current project plans. So within a 66-foot right-of-way, you can see we have 5.5-foot sidewalks each side of the corridor, 10-foot travel lanes, 10-foot median, and then specifically an 11-foot combination transit. It says tram, but it's basically a transit lane, and bicycle lane combo. And that's what currently exists in segment 2 and what's currently being constructed in our current segment 3 and is designed for the rest of the project. The alternative that we are presenting for you today is to remove the transit component from the auxiliary lane and instead utilize it for a combination of a low-speed vehicle exclusive lane and a 4-foot bicycle lane with a buffer between the LSV lane and the bike lane. We would contemplate no other changes to the cross-section as currently proposed. For this alternative lane use concept, one challenge that you have with having the 3 separate lanes is how do you manage the vehicles within that, particularly for left turns. An innovative use or solution to this that's been used in several communities is the concept of a bicycle box. And the photograph that you see there is typical for the use of a bicycle box. It allows an area in front of the stop bar at signalized intersections for the bicycles to be able to get in front of vehicles, to be able to make safe left turns at those signal-controlled intersections. The other issue that we would have is approaching any place where LSVs would need to make left turns. We would need to have some type of a merge from the exclusive LSV lane to be able to get into the through travel lane and be able to make those left turns. Those could be at signalized intersections. They could also be at any left turn lanes that we have throughout the corridor. So that's a design challenge that we'll have to overcome, but we do feel like it is achievable with signing, with pavement marking, with good engineering. The LSVs would have the right to use the through lane only at intersections would be the concept. Otherwise, we would want them to be exclusively within the designated lane. That allows the motor vehicles to be able to pass them. A lot of this lane usage all hinges on speed compatibility for vehicles within the corridor. Obviously, bicycles are going to operate the slowest, pedestrians slower than that, LSVs 20 to 25 is the legal speed, and then obviously motor vehicles at the speed limit, which is 35. So making all of that compatible and working together is the engineering challenge of having these lanes. The concept certainly requires a public education component. We talked a little bit about that in a previous commenter today in the meeting about the public education of the use of LSVs and doing it safely. Bicyclists, it's always a challenge with multiple road users. So we do have the resources to be able to do that, I believe, in this community. But also there's a law enforcement component to it, to maintain people in their separate spaces. So those are challenges that have to be worked through should you want to go forward with this concept. Another issue that we have is buffering between the LSV lane and the bicycle lane. Currently, right now, it is a all-inclusive lane, so all the different users operate together within the auxiliary lane. Now we would be separating those uses, and so we would need to have striping, we would need to have, in some cases, some physical markings, and you can see a couple of concepts that could be implemented: low-profile lane separators, raised pavement markers, and use of the double white pavement marking, which indicates to a motorist or a vehicle user not to cross that line. It doesn't absolutely forbid crossing, it just simply encourages not to cross that line when the pavement marking is white. We would use products that are FDOT approved. We would work to try to make sure that that's going to engender minimal long-term maintenance costs. So there are things that we can do that get more expensive from a maintenance standpoint when they get hit, and there are things that we can do, like the low-profile pavement markers, that are much less cost for maintenance. And I think one critical issue that we need to consider that is contained within both the PD&E study need and purpose, which is the study that was done by DOT to get our federal funding and authorization for the project. We want to maintain the ability of police and fire to use that auxiliary area for emergency response. That was a core component of the original CRA plan and obviously the PD&E. So we believe that this plan, using these low-profile markers, would be able to achieve that. A second issue that the city manager asked me to address with you today is the options for LSV parking at beach accesses 44 through 50. So that is the area of Oleander that is just east of Front Beach, Middle Beach Road intersection. So we did some preliminary evaluation of the possibilities of doing LSV parking in this area in May and June. We looked at cost benefit, we looked at environmental impact, potential for public controversy is certainly always an issue, and then impacts on and restrictions on any residents and business access in that area. Current concept that we're presenting today is to provide some form of LSV parking along Oleander Drive on the north side of the road, south of Front Beach Road. So it would be in that area. In that particular area, we have a 100-foot right-of-way, which the DOT will be transferring to you, and we have a 50-foot right-of-way on Oleander. So we have a fairly wide combined right-of-way in there that would permit us to be creative and provide some parking. There has been, as I'm sure you're aware, some recent controversy with LSV parking on private property near those accesses, this would be working to address some of those issues as a part of the project. We looked at that entire length, and our engineers determined you could have up to 125 LSV-sized spaces. Those would be smaller than a typical parking space, which would be like a 9x18 would be a typical vehicle space. These would be somewhat less than that. As we design, we can look at the size of that. A typical size is probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 8x12, 8x14. So they'd be a little bit smaller than a standard space. We could get more in there. If we were to go with this option, we would have to do a redesign on the current plan. One concern expressed by Public Works is that the drainage grading of Oleander drains toward the north, it drains toward this area, so if we were to pave this area, we would have to address drainage. A second issue is that based on the slopes that we have currently from Front Beach Road down to Oleander, plus the pedestrian accesses that we have in the current plan, we would have to move the retaining wall. So this next slide here shows you, it's a conceptual plan that we drew up for you. So you can see the LSV sizes in there. In this case, we've got 6x10. We could make them a little longer. We'll have to adjust that as we go through the final design. But the idea being, on the right-hand side of the slide, you can see where we have the ADA accesses that come down from the sidewalk on Front Beach down to the grade on Oleander, and also the sidewalks along Oleander would be provided for accesses to the LSV parking. So we would make it ADA compatible and accessible. So the issues, I guess, that we need direction on today is how much parking would we want to provide. The more parking that we try to provide, the more complicated the drainage gets, so we would certainly be suggesting some balance of spaces and drainage area in these areas for that. But the amount that you would want to provide, obviously the more parking we provide, the more expensive the solution would get. I don't have those numbers until I have some idea whether you'd want to go forward with this and how much parking we would be looking to try to accommodate in this area. Some other considerations for your discussion. We do have to, if we go with this concept, currently we are engaged in the process of land acquisition within the corridor. When we go to acquire that property, we're negotiating up front, but at some point we may have to go take a court action to acquire that property. If we were to eliminate the transit component in this area, the pullouts that we are currently acquiring property for, we would have less justification for taking that by adverse as opposed to negotiation. So that's something that we do need to consider, that if the policy direction is different in this area.
And Scott, sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
For those bus pullouts, my understanding is that it's just how many feet are they being pulled out for, and what's
Sure.
the goal of the pullouts?
So the pullouts are approximately 4 feet wider than the current 11-foot transit lane. The idea is that when the transit vehicles, currently that's the number 7 bus, when they pull off to pick up passengers, they would pull out to the right and allow bicyclists to get by them within that combined bicycle transit lane. So that's the purpose. It's really for transit, patron, boarding, and deboarding of the transit vehicle.
Okay, so they're not going completely off the transit lane, they're just pulling over enough that a bus can get by them.
It widens the lane out a little bit so that transit vehicle can pull to the right and allow people to get around.
A bike can get by them. Yeah, okay, thank you.
So that would be something we need to discuss. We've also had some preliminary discussions with our FDOT partners who prepared that PD&E study, which the project is based on. They've indicated to us that we would need to do a reevaluation of that document. It takes about 9 to 12 months for them to initiate and complete that. That is a document that gets prepared. We take a look at the study. We evaluate all the environmental factors that went into the original location and concept approval that the city has for the current design. They have agreed that they will perform that at no cost to the city to assist us with the preparation of the project and keeping it compliant for federal funds. The alternative lane use concept that we've presented with the LSV and the bicycle, it does not add pavement or drainage. It doesn't change that, so we don't expect to have a significant environmental impact for the project as a part of that. Cost and schedule impacts. So we would need to make design changes to the marking and the signalization plans for the project to do the alternative lane use. We work to minimize impact on our design and construction timeframes right now. Land acquisition and our approval from Department of Emergency Management for the utility undergrounding funds, that's our critical path. So we try to work this within that critical path to get construction in late 2025. That's our current start date that we're projecting to bid for segment 4.3. The LSV parking would require more significant changes in that particular area. We'd need to move the retaining wall back. It may increase the wall height a little bit, which changes the engineering and construction cost. We would also need to accommodate drainage and obviously the cost of the additional pavement. So that, again, we would try to accommodate that, but the structural changes and the drainage changes, that may complicate things a little bit more, but we would still try to work within having that by next year. The LSV parking, as I said, it could move the construction back by 6 to 9 months to make that changes in the retaining wall design and the drainage design. And I'm here for any questions.
Okay. For the structuring of this discussion, I was going to have some discussion with the council, but before we do any direction, open it up for public comment. That make sense to folks?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't want Scott having to get up and down like we did for Chief Morgan
I
over
can
there.
use the exercise.
All right. So for the talking about the LSV concept, the change in the lanes. So basically, just to summarize, that would take the red lanes, the multimodal transit lanes, which are currently designed for bikes and mass transit.
Any transit.
Any transit, okay. And split that into 2 lanes, one for LSVs and then one for bike lanes. So bikes could still use part of that lane, they just get their own dedicated lane.
That's correct.
And then instead of the transit, or potentially, would there be able to be transit in the LSV lane in this concept?
No, we would confine the transit to the through travel lane. That would engender, I think, too many conflicts with multiple people in multiple places, so.
Okay. Mr. Whitman, I thought Freebie may be able to operate in here?
Yeah, if they bring in their low-speed vehicles that they were demonstrating down south, they would be able to operate in that lane.
Okay, so there would be one option for transit.
Could we move bicycles out of that and onto the sidewalks?
That could be done. The only concern I have is in the 66-foot areas, the sidewalks are.
Goes down to 5.5.
Yeah, they're like 5.5, so you set up some additional conflicts. Generally, I always classify bicycles into one of 2 types of folks. There's the moms and dads with kids, and then you got the guys that, kind of exercise and use it more for transit. So typically, we like those uses separated because they move at different speeds. So
I mean, do
could
we
it be
see
done? Yes, but it does set up some additional conflicts.
Yeah.
And on that point, I believe there's other users that can use the bike lanes. Is that accurate? Would be able to use a bike lane?
Again, it really comes down to what you permit and don't permit within the usages of those. I would tend to think that for higher speed traveling bicyclists, you're probably into electric bicycles. You're into vehicles that have a compatible travel speed to the guys in bike shorts that ride 15, 20 miles an hour. It's really all about speed compatibility.
Yeah. So this concept actually has a structured speed compatibility where on the sidewalks is walking speed.
Right.
On the bike lane, it's bike speed. Then LSVs are about the same speed, but they have just a different footprint, and in my opinion, if we open up the entire lane to them, they're going to be, I mean, you know where they're going to ride down the center. Right? I don't think they'll be, and then we'll go to vehicle speed, which will be up to 35.
Right. I mean, I guess the only concern I would have is, and I'm all about changing the LSVs. People ought to be able to get in a golf cart and go up and down Front Beach Road, plain and simple, no questions asked. I don't know about you guys, but can these electric bikes go in these LSV lanes, or absolutely not? Or they would have to because these bikes go faster than golf carts. A lot of, I don't know when the last time you guys have rode Front Beach Road is, but a lot of those bikes are going faster than my truck. So it literally, I mean, a lot of people are really getting after it on these bikes. So my concern is, like, say, for instance, Shops at Edgewater, you have that long right turn lane, and you've got what we're proposing is a bike lane. You got a traffic lane, 35 miles an hour, a bike lane in between the traffic lane, a golf cart, LSV lane, excuse me, not golf cart, two totally different things, I guess, right. LSV, and then you've got 35 miles an hour again, right there. The burden for that individual in a vehicle to cross over to make that right turn at the Shops at Edgewater there would be extremely burdensome, I would think, to if you have a bike that's capable of going 25 miles an hour and sometimes outrun these LSVs that you may not see.
Right.
I just have some concerns with that. I'd like to see, I'm all about changing it. I definitely think it's a great idea and great presentation. I think it's phenomenal. I think you did a great job. I think your group does a great job. But I'd like to see some further studies if this is even something that's, feasible in scenarios like that. I think that would be my biggest concern, is just safety and making sure we're doing it the right way. I may be more open to, like Michael said, putting the bikes on the sidewalk. I know there's some tight areas, so maybe that doesn't work. It needs to be contiguous. We need to figure out a program that works for the entire CRA. But those are my only concerns. But I love the presentation. Thank you, and just like to see some more. I'm not a traffic expert by any means. I don't know if you guys are, but I'm definitely not a traffic flow expert. So I'd like to see how that works.
I'm kind of with Councilman Register on this. I need some more time to digest all of this. I'd like to have some one-on-one sit down. I thought all we were going to be talking about today was the Oleander parking, but this alternative lane use concept, is that just on 4.3?
For now, it would be 4.3 based on.
So what you're talking about today is 4.3 or the whole CRA?
Today, we would be talking about segment 4.3.
So this lane use concept is for 4.3?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir, that would go from Front Beach and Lantana all the way to the east of Front Beach and Richard Jackson. Yeah. That's 4.3.
And Vice Mayor?
Yeah, but if you do it in 4.3, you're going to have to do it along the entire CRA section, correct? If you convert this lane, that you can't just have it at 4.3 where it's LSV bicycle split, and then the rest of it is a larger.
What we've determined is that because you have the major intersection at Front Beach and Middle Beach, and you've got the major intersection at Richard Jackson, we could isolate and just do that particular segment. And the transit vehicles would basically merge out of the transit lane each direction and then move into the through lane.
Okay.
So because it's at two major intersections, what we call in the business is we got logical termini. We've got logical places that we can make these lane use changes. So if it was council's pleasure just to do 4.3, we can.
So you're saying if it was just 4.3, you would leave the transit lane and they would merge into regular traffic, bypass that section, and then, oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think this is a good, for just looking at 4.3 right now for this concept, it preserves us optionality. I know previous councils have actually done a really good job of not turning over the additional lanes to just cars, because that would never come back. Because, just like when Front Beach Road goes to 6 lane, I hate to break it to the public, but everyone tells us that it's going to fail as soon as it's 6 lanes just because of the additional demand. If we were to immediately go to 4 laning Front Beach Road, it's just going to fill up again. So
Sure.
I think transit alternatives make a lot of sense here.
Absolutely.
And I personally really like this option. because of the LSV lanes, and we just do have bicycle users that they're not even, on segment 3, they could be riding on those sidewalks, and they're not. You know, I'm actually a little frustrated with that because they take up the car lane. They're allowed to, but we already see that many cyclists aren't going to ride on the sidewalk. We're really talking about either an option of in a dedicated lane, in a combined lane, or in the road. I think getting them, especially for those through cyclists, getting that dedicated lane is nice. And also, there's just not enough space for 2 LSVs in the 11-foot. They're 4.5 foot wide, but it just gets a little iffy. So keeping them away from the cyclists, I think also makes a lot more sense. And as Councilman Register, I'll hand it over to you after this.
No,
as Councilman Register indicated, you know, both residents and tourists really enjoy the LSVs. And so this would be something that, in addition to potentially using Freebie for transit, we could have a transit solution, a solution that works for the residents, and a solution that works for the tourists. And I know a number of people both cycle for pleasure and cycle to commute to a lot of the jobs on Front Beach Road too.
Absolutely.
So we could have some more flexibility with Freebie instead of the number 7, as well as just giving them a lane to just run on by.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm opposed to it, but I just didn't know we were going to have this discussion.
Okay.
I thought we were going to be talking more about parking, and I need some more time to sit down one-on-one with the city manager and Scott and do some one-on-ones on it. It's a big decision, and I'm not.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying I'm opposed to it, but I just want to look at it because we'll be giving up something to do what he's proposing to do on this, and I want to know what we're giving up and if it's the best fit for us. I mean, I'm not saying I'm opposed to it, but I just kind of would like to look at it a little more.
Yeah, absolutely, sir. And our Councilman Casto, and I think we will get to this discussion to the parking. So we won't disappoint you there.
Well, that's what I was told. Now we're talking about changing lanes, so I need some more time.
For sure. Yeah. Councilmember Coburn.
Yes, I'd like to thank Scott or whoever came up with this idea. I think this is some great out-of-the-box thinking that's being done to look at solving some of the issues in our community. And low-speed vehicles are not going to go away. I mean, they're here, people love them. And to a certain extent, we're victims of our own success because we've got all the short-term rentals, and now we have to figure out how to help those short-term rental people and our residents, especially our residents, get to the beach, find a place to park without having to drag their children and everything else down the street to do it. So I think the more that we can look at areas to do this, the better. Our redevelopment plan was done a long time ago, and things have changed a lot during that time, and I think we need to definitely be looking at this.
Yep.
It's a good idea.
Thank you, Councilmember. Mayor.
Yeah, no, I've never had a problem accommodating LSVs in a lane. Now, did you say this would have a 9 to 12 month setback?
For the reason that we're looking at 4.3 is because, the direction appears we need to march forward and get 4.1, 4.2 out to bid. If we needed to back up in those sections, we would have that same delay. What we're saying is we're going to try to do that concurrently with the other work that we have going on, which is land acquisition and the approvals. So those two, if one runs a little longer than the other, it may impact a couple of months. What we're saying is we would need to start that process with DOT as soon as possible because they will need 9 to 12 months to process the reevaluation so that we stay eligible for the federal funding.
Now, the LSV bike lane change, that is not what is affecting the 9 to 12 months, correct?
That is still part of the
It's still part?
Yeah, that's part of the
Okay.
reevaluation process.
I wanted to make sure.
That's a change from your typical section that's in the PD&E, so we have to get
Okay.
their approval and concurrence to do that. We think that's a fairly simple change because we're not affecting the environment, we're not adding pavement, we're not changing the cross-section, but it still changes the purpose and need that you're basing everything on, so we have to get that approval.
Now, let me ask you this. We complete Front Beach Road section. Would we have to do anything to go back once it's completed and convert that transit lane to what we're seeing now? Other than striping and dividers?
It's mainly a striping exercise. So I think the advantage that you have is if we go through this process on 4.3, and the pleasure of council is you want to roll this out to other areas, it can certainly be done. We have a 4-year construction schedule, essentially, once we start construction in 4.1 and 4.2. If the pleasure of council is we are we like this concept and we want to make that sort of change in flight, it can be done. It's a striping change and a signalization change. Those are the main things that are affected as far as our plans by making this change.
Yeah, my point or my question is, if we change the design of 4.3 now, we're looking at having to go back in PD&E and a 9 to 12 month extension or increase in our, no?
Not for,
Not for this.
Not for 4.3, because we're still doing design. We won't put that out the fourth quarter of next year or early quarter of 26.
So in your presentation, you've got a 9 to 12 month.
That's for the review of the state.
That's for the state's review of the reevaluation. We'd be doing that concurrent with the other work that we have.
Okay, so we're not looking at adding 9 to 12 months?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a, sorry to interrupt there.
No, you're fine.
It sounds like it's a task that can be done concurrently.
Yeah.
And because 4.3 is so far out, we have, we're giving more work to our friend, Mr. Passmore.
It does cost more money and
Yeah.
it takes some effort. The DOT's been a great partner and they've agreed to assist us through this at no cost. They will cover the cost of that because they did that original study 13 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, the way I was reading it, it looked like
Yeah.
9 to 12 months, and I was like, oh, well, okay.
On which section you talking about?
4.3.
We're only,
4.3.
Councilman, yeah, we're only talking about
Not a
4.3.
delay on 4.1 or 4.2.
No.
We're not touching 4.1 and 4.2.
Correct.
Yeah, but we're only talking about 4.3 for this presentation, and I think it was, prudent to only talk about 4.3, because 4.1, 4.2, we're trying to expedite, or we're trying to keep the schedule.
Rolling, keep it going.
Yeah, but we have a little time for 4.3, and so we can look at this option. I think particularly, and when we get to the parking, the striping is one thing, but adding parking is it would be some work, so we need to look at that now. Sorry. Yeah.
I was just going to say one thing, that I'm in agreement with Councilman Register. If we can have a traffic study, I think we had one, what was the gentleman that came in at one time? Yeah. Take a look and just see what the impact would be and make sure we're all clear there.
Help me understand what a traffic study, that would be the first one.
Is Kathy in here? No, you.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, here.
no, let's,
So,
I know you're knowledgeable on this, but let's ask Mr.
If I
Passmore.
understand the tenor of the discussion, what you're asking is you want to be sure that this is safe and that the speeds that I've described are going to be compatible. So basically, the different types of vehicles, how would this work in practice and be accommodated? And would traffic flow change within the corridor?
Yes. Safety is our first priority, and we want
I
to
can say
continue
from
to
a
be that way.
vehicle standpoint, it doesn't really, a motor vehicle standpoint, it doesn't really change a whole lot because that's all based on the number of lanes for motor vehicles, and that doesn't change in this scenario.
In 4.3, it's not all 66-foot right-of-ways. Some of that's 100-foot right-of-way.
It moves in and out. I gave you the most restrictive section because that's what's going to control our ability to implement it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I did just want to bring up the fact that there's a new Florida statute that if you're going to, for existing lanes, I know 4.3 is not done yet, but if you were going to expand this to other completed sections, there's a new statute that requires the same study that you're talking about will have to be done on all the other segments, just to let you know.
Okay.
What's the timeline for those kind of studies?
I'd have to scope it, probably the same kind of thing, 9 months to a year. By the
Okay.
time we were to procure the engineering, do the work, I would certainly have to consult with somebody that's an expert in traffic engineering, which I don't claim to be.
Yes.
So, and we would need to sit and scope it, make sure
Okay.
we're addressing the concerns.
All right.
So then that would push back the new PD&E. Because that would, is my understanding that if we do a traffic study, we wouldn't do the PD&E update? Or can they would DOT
I
be
mean, the only thing that I
amenable
can
to a
say-
provisional PD&E
What
update?
what I would say is that when they do the project reevaluation, I don't know that it goes in depth, but there is a component of looking at traffic analysis as a part of the PD&E process. So we can ask that question to see if that's something that we can incorporate in
Okay,
that
so,
reevaluation.
yeah, so there's a potential not to put them back to back, but as
Right.
part of the PD&E,
I would have
incorporate.
to take that question to the department and
Yeah.
see if they're willing
Get
to
back to
assist
us on
us in that question.
Okay.
and evaluating that.
Yep.
Instead of turning this into a rocket science experiment, how do we dumb this down to find another community that's already done something that's worked in the state of Florida? Is there another community similar to ours?
We
that's
can
done-
ask.
Had similar concepts?
I looked a little bit, and I haven't found a whole lot of places that would, I mean, there's not a lot of communities that probably had the concept that you had originally approved in 2011 with the combination of transit and bicycles. So
Well,
you're-
that's the hard part for me, is
Yeah.
why is it okay for a transit and a bicycle to be in the same lane, but not that's allowed to be a multi-use lane, but why not a electric bike and LSV and a bicycle
Right.
all to be in the same lane? I'm just trying to understand.
I'd say you're introducing a lot more users
Okay.
in that space that have incompatible speeds.
Makes perfect sense.
Generally, the transit that was conceptualized was professionally operated transit, which means they're looking for those conflicts, or they're trained. So if somebody's pedestrians crossing the road, or there's a bicycle in that area, they're trained. I think what you wind up with, this is my opinion now.
Sure.
That when you have tourists, you have people that aren't necessarily used to the rules of the road in the community, you set up the risk of operator error. That's where most of your safety issues come from, honestly. When you look at safety issues throughout the state of Florida, about 15 to 20% of them are physical or signage or striping. About 80% is somebody made a mistake and caused a conflict that created an injury or a fatality. And so that speed compatibility, to me, is a very important component, that you keep those different speeds separate. It's probably the most important part of this.
Yeah, and I think the traffic study needs to look into the future of, I see our lanes being used by electric skateboards. He's going 25 miles an hour. A scooter is in that lane all the time. I always see electric scooters, all those things. So as these electric products continue to evolve, we need to be forward-thinking to include them in being able to get up and down our corridor. I think it's great. If somebody wants to ride a dang scooter and go to the beach, phenomenal, great, wonderful. Somebody wants to ride their golf cart, phenomenal, great. Residents, visitors, doesn't matter. We want to be able to provide inclusion for all those people to be able to use whatever their means are of transportation to get to the beach effectively and safely.
Yeah, currently what happens in a lot of cases that we see is that if we have bicycle lanes, which is kind of the older style, whether we have a shoulder, we're seeing a lot of those electrified vehicles using those facilities now, which I don't know that they were originally designed for when we started. I'm thinking.
Yeah, when was the study done? Last study?
The PD&E was done in 2011.
Yeah, there was nobody, the electric bike market has gone through the roof since then, so we need to reevaluate.
I think electric bikes, I was talking to the chief of police about that, or before a meeting today, they follow the same guidelines as a regular bicycle.
I believe all those users right now would be allowed by, is that accurate? those users would be allowed in a bike lane.
Well, I don't know about the electric skateboard, but the electric scooter, or what the statute calls micro mobility devices, they have the same rights as bicycles.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, in general terms, bicycles are going to move at about 15 miles an hour, LSVs are about 25, and then your speed limits in the vehicle lanes are 30 to 35.
So it's speed differentiated, not necessarily just.
When you look at safety, speed differential is one of the leading causes of
Absolutely.
accidents and injuries. So,
I did want to make a kind of a related point about speed differential, which is this, having a dedicated LSV lane also gives us the opportunity to take the LSVs off of Front Beach Road.
Absolutely.
Or the
main
car lanes off of Front Beach Road.
Yes, sir.
And so I don't know if you all have ever had the experience about being stuck behind an LSV.
Every day.
Yes.
And so if we're going to give them a dedicated lane, we can say, hey, you know, you got to use that lane. And you can't use the car lanes, let the cars go a little bit more quickly, and it addresses the speed differential because they're supposed to only be 25.
Absolutely.
I think some of them may be a little juiced, but,
Yeah, absolutely.
but it's 35 in that corridor.
Or underjuiced.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, hey, if you're, they're enjoying.
I've been behind some that there's no
Yeah.
way they're getting to 25.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's this. Yeah, it is our scenic corridor, and they're enjoying the scenery. And I think that's why both residents and tourists enjoy them. So that's why I'm particularly in favor of the LSV lane. And I think there's been a lot of discussion about the bike lane. It's just if we have an LSV lane, we have some extra pavement. We don't want, if we let the LSVs on all over, there's going to be incompatible.
Sure.
I think there's speed, but also width incompatibility. So separating that out, to me, makes a lot of sense. It gives those users the ability to go on to the beach or to work or to school.
I love it.
Without interfering with the golf carts or LSVs.
I don't think I've heard anyone up here that's against an LSV lane.
Yeah.
I think it's more, let's make sure, one, that
Yeah.
it's safe, and we've got a full picture.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And I will avoid direction right now because I promised public comment before we did direction, but I want to capture what I think where we're at in that discussion, which is potentially having PD&E update and traffic study, see what the traffic study is a part of that. But we'll get there after public comment. We also have the parking issue, which I know Councilman Castro is particularly prepared for. So, Mr. Passmore, you indicated that there may be drainage issues if we do the entire corridor for that 125 maximum number. I mean, honestly, to me, that seems like way too much.
A lot.
But that's a maximum.
Right.
Right? And so if we were to go lower than that maximum, could we address those drainage issues?
so the key is that if you pave the entire area, the drainage is challenging. If you pave portions of it, we have then some green space that's available to deal
Yeah.
with the drainage in those areas. So, sure.
Do we have an idea of right now how many LSVs?
I think you need.
Ma'am,
Like-
ma'am, you are out of order.
Yes.
If you, ma'am, you are out of order.
You are.
If you continue to disrupt, I'm going to ask that you be,
On this city.
ma'am, please leave.
No, I'll be right here.
Ma'am, please leave.
I'll be here for my moment.
Ma'am,
Yes?
please leave.
No.
Ma'am, I'm going to ask you to,
I have nothing to be required to be removed from this building.
ma'am, you have been continued to be disruptive
When?
just now.
I apologize. I'll say it quietly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I was just trying to find out because you said you've got space for 125. I'm trying to see what our normal LSV count there is currently and what we might be able to project what we would need. That was, my question.
We haven't
Yeah.
moved it to the stage where we would do those counts. It's really the pleasure of council. If you need us to take a look at that, we can certainly do that and then come back and try to get some counts. We're still in relative season, so we can try to figure out a guess. It's going to be just that. It's going to be basically observational.
Yeah, I would say my guess would be something like 6 to 10 spots for beach access. We don't want to induce too heavy a demand on those beach accesses.
That's what I was looking at.
Yeah,
How
I
many
mean,
access we've got.
if you look at how they're, I've gone by there several times, and I know there's concerns about the way those golf carts are used in those. I would personally be amenable to something like 6 to 10 golf cart spots per access. That would alleviate some of the uses on the south side where there's some conflicts, some residence conflicts.
That much of a reduction, that would significantly make it easier to accommodate, correct?
Yes, sir. It makes it much simpler to deal with drainage. We have to put the drainage somewhere, and we'll have to accommodate it in the design.
10.
Yeah, okay, but before we do any direction, let's, I know, any further discussion on the parking?
We used to use that shoulder on Oleander for parking for years down there, and I think the reason we stopped doing that was the issue with the fire truck one time trying to get through there during the summer, and it wasn't wide enough, but you're looking at moving the retaining wall back and making that wider. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct. So right now, the retaining wall is within 6 feet of the pavement because we have a sidewalk down there for the beach accesses. We would need to move that back to accommodate another 6 or 7 feet for a parking.
So you wouldn't pave that whole strip, is what you're saying? You'd have little areas where you'd have to leave open for stormwater?
Yes, that is correct.
And some of those houses, you may or may not know, were built 60, 70, 80 years ago, and they're lower than the road there, and they have some existing drainage problems down there. So, yeah.
Yeah, in speaking with Public Works, that was the concern, is that the road had been altered to run that drainage to the north, specifically to address some of those issues with the runoff.
Right.
And so we have to maintain and accommodate that.
I would love to see that, all that, as much as we could get down there for LSV parking.
Okay. All right. I think we've had a decent discussion up here, but I know the public is aching to chat about this, so I'll take public discussion on both these concepts.
I think aching wouldn't be the word for it.
Please state your name, ma'am.
Janice Hatcher. I own a home at 13223 and 13225. And I know, Stuart, you ran your election on the fact of what you were going to give the SLV, the slow-moving vehicles in Bitterweed. But you know what? It's not right what you're doing to the citizens who have invested so damn much money down on Oleander. We have homes down there that are $8 million, $10 million. I have two. I'd like to sell you for $12 million. But you decide that you're going to have those slow-moving vehicles. You're going to provide 125 of them at 4 people per vehicle is 500 people that you're going to put down there in one location on top of our houses? Do you think you have the right to do that? Have you spoke to other people? Do other people exist in this city?
Ma'am, please.
I know I'm having a hard time
Please don't.
speaking.
I understand
hear me.
you're passionate, but please don't
Stop
shout.
my time because I want him to be able to hear me. Stop my time and then I'll start back up when you get ready.
Go ahead.
So if you're taking my time, I want it back. Nobody has the right. We take too much energy on these slow-moving vehicles. They don't pay 1 damn % of this 1% tourism tax. Not 1%.
Ma'am, please calm down.
I'm sorry, I can't control my voice. But they have all these rights, and they come in and they force all these people on the beach where we have spent millions and millions of dollars on our home, and they'll continue to do so on Oleander. And you, because you ran on that slow-moving vehicle for Bitterweed, think you have the right to bring in all of these
Ma'am,
vehicles.
please calm voice.
Yeah.
This is a
Just listen to me
meeting.
when I talk to you, Stuart.
Please, down.
Because this was
Ma'am.
not going to flow over easily. Thank God I came to this meeting today. But all those other people that have rights, that pay $30,000 per house in taxes there, and now you're going to destroy
Ma'am,
our
please keep your
rental.
voice down.
And you're going to destroy our rental properties when they move this. You're going to destroy our rental properties by providing for these people of Bitterweed parking to bombard all the beaches around down Oleander. You have no right to do that. You have no right to do that. You may have ran on that premise, but the people of this city matter too. And we worked damn hard for our money. Nothing was given to me. And for you to come in this city and for Mary to come in here and all y'all gonna do is gonna run a damn slow-moving vehicle. Everything in
Ma'am,
this city is moving.
please keep your voice down.
Everything in this city is planned toward that slow-moving vehicle. We're sitting here talking about we're gonna spend extra money. Well, why don't you tax them extra? Why are you taxing me $30,000 for my home for that bunch of people to pull their vehicles in there with their crap on top of it, pull down there with all of they got tents, and they're bombarding the beach.
Thank you, ma'am.
And the people, no, I haven't had my time.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
You took my time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Are you thanking me? Or are
Yes.
you condescending me?
I appreciate the public comment. Your time is up.
The city will have a lawsuit against their hands this time.
Thank you, ma'am.
You can't destroy people's homes like this.
Thank you, ma'am. Further public comment?
Scott Heilman, 137 Johnson Bayou Drive. I just want to say thank you for allowing Ms. Hatcher to speak. That's a big change from what happened another time, so thank you. With regards to this whole thing, the whole special event ordinance, the reason why it was amended originally was to deal with traffic. So I don't understand why we are talking about even putting parking on Front Beach Road. The purpose of Front Beach Road is to move, and I've been on Front Beach Road, and there may be a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit, but if you're in the summer or the tourist season, you're not going 35 if you're on Front Beach Road. Whatever we want to do with that land should be used for traversing traffic, not for parking. I know parking is important for getting people to the beach, but the traffic, that's the issue. And I just hope that we're doing something to address the traffic. And thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Further public comment?
Hello, Mayor and Council. Michael Steinkirchner. You guys hit the trifecta with me today on this. I know with the parking on Oleander, in terms of signage, is going to be very important to make sure that the rental properties that are down there, those folks aren't just occupying that. I don't know if signage, whether those will be designated as LSV parking spaces only, or how that will be, just as obviously Ms. Hatcher had people that were parking on her or adjacent to her property or those beach accesses where it wasn't designated that it was allowed, making sure that, that is restricted specifically to that. To the LSV lane, and I don't know, maybe Mr. Davis, is whether or not the city will actually be able to do that as a mandated traffic control to order them into that lane. And then I think as part of the traffic study, how does that impact Chief Tao to be able to have that enforced? Is that going to be a cumbersome burden on Chief Tao and his people to be pulling people over because, well, I have to transit over into this lane to make my turn, kind of what Councilman Register said on the other issue. So I think the enforcement part of it should definitely be included in the traffic study for impact on law enforcement. They got enough going on out there already. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steinkirchner. Further public comment on this side?
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Peter Fischetti.
Good morning.
Family's lived here 9 years. In fact, 9 years ago today, we moved to Panama City Beach, and I thought, what better way to celebrate the anniversary than to attend the city council meeting. Previous meetings that I've gone to, whenever the subject of Front Beach Road arose, I pointed to the CRA survey on mass transit. made it clear that neither residents nor visitors were interested in using a bus to get around the beach area. But it was also clear that another lane would be added to Front Beach Road, so what other options would we have to utilize that lane with the intention of easing traffic? Usually, city council agendas don't excite me, but the one today is different because it calls for a discussion on the merits of dividing the new lane in the 4.3 section, 2 lanes, one for low-speed vehicles, otherwise known as street legal golf carts, and another for bikes. I think it's a great idea for a number of reasons. First, it would remove the cost of maintaining and subsidizing bus service, which the city would have to deal with. Second, by removing low-speed vehicles from the current lane, traffic would move quicker. After all, when the speed limit is 35 and you have LSVs that can't exceed 25, congestion is inevitable. Third, it would encourage the use of low-speed vehicles, most of which are electric, and bikes, since the bike lane would be wider and safer than the current one, and as a result, our air quality would improve. Fourth, it would allow for low-speed vehicle parking right near the beach, rather than having beachgoers drag all their coolers, chairs, umbrellas, boogie boards, etc., from a parking lot blocks away. And finally, this plan would further set Panama City Beach apart from other beach communities by encouraging LSVs and bikes as a fun way of getting around. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Further public comment? Okay, looks like we lost one.
We should have taken you up on your break off.
I had a premonition that we may spend a minute or two on this one.
Do we want to take a 5-minute?
No, let's wait for Councilman Casto to get back.
I will say one thing, though.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Hatcher, I don't think anyone up here is going to put 125 parking spaces on Oleander.
No.
Okay? So.
No. Well,
so.
Ms. Hatcher, that's what we're discussing today.
Ms. Hatcher, I know you're a very reasonable lady, and I've enjoyed my conversations and time I've spent with you, and you have invested a lot in our community. I know that there's got to be some balance there, and I'd love to talk to you about it. So I know you believe, like I believe, that rising tide lifts all boats, and everybody has a place in this community, and we'll all work together to figure it out and come to a resolution that's acceptable to everybody, I hope.
Indeed, that's part of why we're having this discussion publicly, including public comment, is to get to the point where everyone can share their opinions. This would be an important change. And Mr. Fischetti did mention the traffic study that was done, which indicated that neither tourists nor residents would use a traditional bus. I think there may be maybe of a difference with Freebie because it's an on-demand micro-transit. But
I like Freebie, man.
Yeah.
I think we had some great meetings with them and at the League of Cities conference. A great option for.
And just for clarification, I believe the transit idea of the CRA was never a bus.
Okay.
Especially for me. It was, yeah.
Okay.
It was never what you see right now from,
Well, I think this council has spent so much time trying to get the CRA on track that they've kind of set us up for the ability to have this discussion now, because now the CRA is starting to roll. So,
that's been the most important.
Yeah, I totally understand. Yeah. Okay. So, two things based on our discussion. I'm going to summarize and then let me know if it's incorrect. One, we want a traffic study. Now, would the council be amenable to doing that as part of the PD&E? Or would the council prefer to potentially have a additional traffic study before the PD&E at risk of delaying, because a portion of that will be part of the PD&E?
Right.
Yeah. I'm going to
Go
let
ahead.
Councilman.
My opinion is to never slow the CRA down. I'll make that publicly clear right now. I'll never want to slow it down, so anything we can do. Thank you, Councilman Jarman, Vice Mayor Jarman, for clarifying that they were going to coincide the 9 to 12 months, because that was a major hurdle for me to get over. But if they're going to work concurrently on that, and any of these things we can do not to hold things up, our community doesn't need to permanently be under construction, and we need to get this done as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Can we reach out and see what that study would entail? And
Yeah, I'll work with Scott and his staff.
yeah, and that way, you know, you can come back and we'll have a much better idea. Right now, we're just spitballing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a discussion item, so yeah. Yeah, I think it's, okay, so let's say, get information on what traffic component would be a part of a PD&E. And also, if we wanted to enhance, do a traffic study separate from the PD&E, or do you just want to get the traffic component as part? Why don't we have Mr. Passmore present what traffic component would be part of the PD&E?
Right.
Is that?
Yeah, give us an idea.
Yeah, give us an
I don't know
idea,
if you can do it
so
now.
we can decide if it's sufficient, and then if we wanted to.
Yeah.
So normally, when you do a reevaluation, you're looking at bringing the traffic numbers up to current standards. I've not actually done one that would be involving what you're asking to do, so I've really got to ask the question with the DOT's folks and see what they need, for that, and then I'll know what parts they're going to do, and then we can supplement what you're asking for.
Okay, and to be clear, because I think the temperature of the council is, if we were doing that supplementation, could that go concurrently with the PD&E?
That would be the intent, is I would bring you
Yeah.
back an amendment. My logical guess is that in order to retain responsible charge for the engineering, that I would ask Volkert to conduct that, because they are doing the design currently, and so they're going to live with the results of your direction and do the engineering. So they have traffic engineers. We can get a quote from them to do what you're asking to do, and we have a contractual vehicle to be able to do it.
Okay, so two things. One, talk to DOT and see how much of a traffic study they would be doing. And what was the engineering firm's name? Volkert?
Volkert is our current
Yeah, Volkert, and
designer,
then get a sense of what additional work they would need to do for a
And
traffic
Volkert
study.
is a pre-qualified engineer with the FDOT, so they can work with their folks on the reevaluation process, and we can engage them to provide that support as well, so that it would work together and be seamless.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'd come back with a scope of what DOT says, and then also cost and time.
Correct.
With Volker.
Yep.
Yep.
That's correct.
Okay. Councilman Casto, I know is that okay for right now? And we're going to have another bite at this apple.
I'm good with that right now.
Okay.
I just know at the end of the day, this council's going to have to make a decision on what we want to put in that 100 feet or 66 feet. They're going to give us proposals, same as Scott's given us. We're going to have to make
Yeah.
the decision.
Yeah.
And I don't want to drag it out for 6 months or a year, but if we can do it concurrently with bidding and moving on with 4.3, I'm okay with doing that. See if they got some better ideas than what Scott's presented to us.
Okay. All right, so those two items, talk to DOT, and the scoping with Volkert with the existing concept.
Sure.
Everyone good on that?
Good.
Yes.
And then coming back to us with the price and
Yep.
timeline.
Price and timeline, yeah.
I'll try to have that by the next council meeting. I'm not going to promise, but I'll do my best.
Oh, you've already said it.
I'll do my level best.
When you talk, all caveats go out the ear. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mr. Passmore. Okay, now let's move on to the Oleander parking. I think, as was made clear with Mr. Passmore's presentation, were we to go with that entire thing being parking, there would be substantial drainage issues. And honestly, in my opinion, it's simply not suited for that area. That's a little neighborhood down there.
Absolutely.
So I was thinking something like 6 to 10 spots per beach access. That would give them enough, that's about less than half of the max. So we'll have some space for drainage, and we're not overloading that mini neighborhood down there.
I'd like to ask Mr. Passmore a question,
Sure.
if possible. And I hate to even bring this up, but I'm going to anyways, just trying to have a better understanding. Right now, the way that community works is anybody and everybody can park up on the hill right now, and they will use those ramps, and they walk down and they walk through those accesses, correct?
Correct.
Is there any way to build retaining walls out to provide 6 to 10 spots on the upper portion of the CRA where they can walk down and utilize that the same? Because I can imagine if I was that would eliminate the property owner having to overtaking that with their parking, and then would also eliminate from the property owner looking outside and having multiple LSVs right at their front door. It's a tight road. I operate the Holiday Inn Express right there. I know that overflow parking lot comes in our parking lot all the time. It happens. Is there a way to be able to design that retaining wall to provide 6 to 10 spaces that jut out on the elevated portion of the CRA, and then have walkways that go down to those accesses so they're not right in these people's front door?
I think the challenge there is on the high side, it's going to increase, it will significantly increase cost because those retaining walls will get very large in order to do that. So for every foot that you move out, you're probably increasing that wall height by a factor of 1 to 1/2. So for every foot you move out, you're increasing that wall height by between 1 foot and 1/2 foot, depending upon how you make that slope. From where we are today down to that.
How high is the retaining wall that's proposed?
Currently, it's about.
It doesn't go all the way up the street level?
No, down to the sidewalk level as we currently have it designed, it's like 3 to 4 feet. We've minimized it at the request of the city manager. There were some safety concerns, graffiti concerns, things of that nature.
Okay.
So when we move it back, it will increase it a little bit, probably 5 to 6,
So
roughly.
you don't think there's a way to keep the parking elevated there?
Well,
That if it was 6 spaces per access, and you had just one specific wall that went up
Our issue
there?
is bringing a slope from here to here. So if I push that out, I'm
But if there's no parking there, you have plenty of room for drainage on the lower level.
We'd have to do an analysis if you're going to ask me the specifics on what the heights are.
And again, I hate, it's something I was thinking, they've lived with it this way for this long,
Yeah.
with people parking on that level all the time, right now, all the way down it. It's packed. I ride by it every single day of my life. It's packed, and people go there, and they use those public accesses that are through there. And I'd like to see if, my personal opinion, is there any feasibility to be able to maintain that same? I want people in Bahama Beach, because those are the people that use it, to be able to, I see them bring their golf carts down there all the time. And they use those beaches. It's not as crowded. It's great. It's beautiful. And I think even Ms. Hatcher, she's okay and amenable to a certain amount of people because she's already dealing with it. It's already that way now. So how do we figure that out?
I think the thing to keep in mind is that we do have a retention pond that we're trying to purchase at the intersection of Front Beach and Middle Beach. It's a retention chamber that will also, at the city's direction, have a parking component on top of that that's kind of incidental to the purchase of that property. So we are trying to work to mitigate some of the project impacts by creating that area on top of the drainage facility.
I mean, our residents deserve a right to be able to go to the beach. So I want to be able to provide that in some way, but also want to protect the investments of people. She's also a resident. She's obviously invested in that community, and it's a great little community. I walk down there sometimes, meet a lot of those people, and I think it's important to find some balance here.
Yeah. Well, I personally, were we to get the parking down there, I'd be amenable to shutting off the parking at those beach accesses, right? So basically, we'd be totally getting rid of the conflict next to those homes, right? So we wouldn't have parking right next to it'd be, on the north side of the street of Oleander instead of the conflict that's currently occurring. That was part of the reason for this proposal, because there's so much controversy down there with people parking right next to the beach accesses.
Down on the lower level.
Down on the lower level and trying to squeeze in, so.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying, Councilman Register, is continue letting them to park up on the shoulder of the road up top there.
Yeah, but in designated areas.
What's that?
In designated areas by the access.
Yeah, just.
By the public access.
Park on the shoulder road like they're parking down there now. And that's cars up there, but on the lower level down there, we're talking about doing SUV parking.
LSV.
LSV, yeah.
You don't want a bunch of SUVs down there.
Yeah.
Also, talking about drainage down through there, you probably would put some type of under drain system in that right away on the north side of Oleander, instead of long retention ponds down there. It'd be some type of under drain system probably there, wouldn't it?
We would look at some combination of swales and exfiltration pipe. So what I would what I would guess is we would create shallow swales to pick up the surface water and then allow that water to get into a pipe that would percolate. So
Yeah,
that
you
would
could
provide the treatment.
get more parking spaces down there if you put that under drain system in there, and that's what you're saying. You're probably going to end up doing that along with some open spaces there for.
Right. It becomes, do you have any green area at all for that direct percolation, or are you putting it all in structures and then that's how we're designing Front Beach Road. It's pretty much all hardened structures with an exfiltration pipe. It's a little easier to maintain grassed swales than it is all exfiltration, plus then the exfiltration pipes get larger when you can't percolate into the ground directly. So it's more of a maintenance consideration for the city if we pave more and put bigger pipes in.
All right.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
I think we kind of get an idea how many we want in there, and then we have another discussion about it, because obviously we're still waiting on some information for traffic and all that, and
Yeah.
pick it up once we have more information and move forward.
Yeah, I think this one we should move on, because this would be this does have the potential, well, one, it would be difficult to do after the start of 4.3. And so this would have the potential to delay 4.3. So why don't we take a look at a concept that, what do you think per beach access? Something like, I was throwing out the number 6 to 10 per beach access, which is about what, the ones can accommodate now. And that's substantially fewer than the max. So can you look at 6 to 10?
Okay.
How many accesses there? 5?
Six, yeah.
Six?
It was 44 through 50.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
7?
Yeah, 7, yeah.
Yeah, I
Right,
think
that is 7.
44
Well, I
through
think
50.
Okay, if we're going to do this at every beach access, then probably 6.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, and not only that, you've got a parking component that we talked about towards the end as well.
And-
So-
yeah.
Yeah, so maybe eliminate that one that's a little bit further down, so maybe take it down to 6 accesses, not including the one closest to the parking structure, would be my opinion.
I'd like to,
Okay, sure.
it's easy to add a few on each side.
Okay.
I mean, do you want to maybe do, because I'm just basing it on what I see down there.
Yeah.
What I don't want to have happen is for us to add insufficient parking down there and have the same conflicts we have now for people going on property. That's what I don't want to have happen. So we have to strike a balance. We don't want to overload that neighborhood.
Right.
But we also don't want to do so few parking spots that we start getting the same behavior. Right? And so why don't we cut the middle and say 8?
There you go.
All right. 8 parking spots.
Sauce.
And beside the beach access also,
Sorry, ma'am. Please.
address that.
So,
Okay.
all right.
So get us a concept with 8, and Mr. Passmore, get us the concept with 8 and just any additional details, and then we'll, do you think that, when do you think that you'll be able to get us that?
I would need to get you a contract for all this, and then we would develop it and bring the concept back in fairly short order.
Okay, so whenever that's ready. All right, thank you very much. Pull up my kiss. Next up is the city manager report.
I'll keep it real short. We have a few positions coming open on the planning board. 2 of the members said they'd like to be reappointed. I have a third one, so at the discretion of you, I'd like to advertise it for the 30 days and bring that back to you along with a email or written statement from the other one saying they'd like to be reappointed.
Okay, thank you. City Attorney.
Oh, where to start? No report.
That's the best place.
Yeah. You know, it was the Cole Davis show today in terms of agenda items, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Councilman Richardson?
I don't have a lot. I mean, just always super appreciative to both of our wonderful chiefs back there, and college football kicks off with our Florida State Seminoles this weekend over in Ireland, so I'm excited about that. It's a good thing, even though I got a man after my heart out there with his Georgia stuff on, so, but I'm excited for college football season, but other than that, I don't have anything, so.
Okay.
Nothing from me, Mayor.
Okay. Councilmember Colburn?
Nothing for me.
Vice Mayor?
I'm good.
I will say good luck to the Marlins as they take on Bay High tomorrow at the opening of high school football. They got a new coach.
Yeah.
You know, and they won their open or their exhibition game.
I graduated from Bay, so.
Oh, okay.
I did too,
Okay.
but that's okay.
I did too. Go Tornadoes.
Oh my God! Talk about a divided council.
Oh, man.
Anyway, so good luck to the Marlins.
Okay.
Also, we had elections on Tuesday, so thank you for all the voters, all the candidates, and congratulations to the winners. If this is your first time in an elected office, welcome to the arena. And also that we ask God to endeavor to guide us as we serve the people of PCB. May God bless Panama City Beach. I will see you at the next council meeting. Thank you.